All right, here we go. Today we have one of the most controversial figures on YouTube, the man that created King Von, rap's first serial killer documentary, as well as other documentaries on hip-hop figures. Trapl Ross, welcome to VladTV.
Thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure.
Been kicking up a lot of dust in recent memory.
There's a lot been going on, man. It's you know what? It's nearly spot on to a year that Von documentary came about. So it's a crazy time, man. A lot's happened in the last year.
Yeah, and I actually watched the whole thing. Because I've commented on it before with Boosie interviews and 1090 Jake interviews. So I actually wanted to watch the whole thing before doing our interview. And, we'll get into it a little bit later. Let's start at the very beginning, though. It's your first time here. So you grew up in the UK.
I did, yeah, in a small town called Bognor Regis.
Okay, and you've been a rap fan since you were a kid?
As long as I can remember, man, I've loved hip-hop. I can't remember ever there being a time that hip-hop wasn't an influence in my life.
Okay, and were you initially into American hip-hop or UK hip-hop or a mix of both?
So the way I got into music really was like, I got two older brothers. And so like my family moved from London, where kind of everything's going on, to this small town in Bognor when I was like 5. But my brothers were still very influenced by like London culture, music culture. So they were into all kinds of hip hop, both the UK and US. And growing up, that just rubbed off on me. Anytime we were in the car, it was hip hop. It would be a mixture. It might be American hip hop, people like 50 Cent, Jay-Z, Eminem. And then it might be UK hip hop, artists maybe you've not heard of, people like Skinny Man, Jest, Mark B and Blade. Like, it was just all I would hear, and I just grew up hearing nothing but hip hop. And at a certain point, like I just was never trying to hear any other genre of music. I looked up to my brothers, and I just thought what they were into was so cool,
Well, these days you're known for hip hop documentaries, but you didn't start out that way. Originally, you were a rapper.
I tried it at rapping, man. Yeah, it's a long time ago, man. I was trying to make it as a rapper. And to be honest, again, it was just the influence of my older brothers. So one of my older brothers used to rap and the other one used to make beats. And like, I just wanted to be like them, basically. So yeah, for a little bit I was trying to rap, but it didn't really go anywhere, Vlad. They ain't trying to hear me rap.
Right. Because you start out as a rapper, then you start filming music videos for rappers?
Yeah, I was filming music videos for like rappers in my area, and when I was 18, I moved back to London from Bognor, so I just got in the mix, just small like local rappers. I was filming their music videos, I was shooting my own music videos. It was kind of a case that it was like I would have rappers and I'd have some wacky idea for a video, they wouldn't want to do it, so I'd be like, let me do that myself, let me shoot that video for my own self. And I just wanted to be in the game, like I wanted to be in the mix somehow, whether it was shooting music videos, rapping, I was trying to make beats for a bit, but I was trash, to be honest with you, so it wasn't going nowhere. But, eventually had a few maneuvers and ended up in this game.
All right, you even tried stand-up comedy.
I did, yeah. Man, you're doing your research, Vlad. I say, no,
yep.
Yeah, I ain't going to call you the police, but you're definitely a good researcher.
Right, you tried stand-up comedy, you would upload sketches and everything to YouTube, but none of that really took off.
No, I mean, so I was really inspired. I don't know if you know, there's a YouTube channel, H3 Productions. So I was super into hip hop. He used to do these like sketch comedy reaction videos. I was just doing a bit of everything, to be honest. Like I was paying the bills doing corporate video at the time. Like, I would shoot videos for local businesses. Shooting the videos for rappers, realistically, that probably cost me more money than it made. I was doing videos for like, someone would give me like $200 for a video and I might spend $300 putting it together, and like, it just wasn't really adding up. But yeah, no, the stand-up comedy thing, there's a real buzzing stand-up comedy scene in London. So I'd go and do open mics and like sketches and skits and all that kind of thing. I was really just trying to be creative. I just loved creating videos, songs, jingles, skits. Like, I've always just wanted to make stuff.
Okay, and from 2015 to 2019, you're uploading videos to YouTube and none of them are really taking off.
No, like I had the odd little video that kind of broke through, but it wasn't anything major. Like I used to even do reaction videos to like famous TV shows. There's a guy, I don't know if you know him, there's a British actor called Danny Dyer, who's kind of like known as being a bit of an idiot. Like he had a TV show and I did like a reaction to his show and that got like 60K views. That was like crazy for me at the time. I was like, damn, I can't believe this. But, I tried to follow that video up and that flopped. I was getting 20 views. So that one I just locked into the algorithm. But it was these little experiences. I was like, oh, YouTube, if I get this thing right, it's defo something. But those videos were trash. My songs were trash. It was a bad time.
Right. And the first video that really took off was the video about Jay-Z shooting his brother when he was 12.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. And that was kind of the first sort of bare bones documentary that you started putting together. Yeah,
it's interesting because like before then I had done videos, like I had done reaction videos to like rap songs. I don't know if you know the UK rapper Skepta, but like he would drop a new music video, I might do a little reaction video to that. There's a rapper called Russ Millions, like he did a music video. And before the Jay-Z one, I did a kind of storytelling type video about his music video and how he kind of blew up. But again, it didn't really lock in because it was a UK artist. But it was funny, around that time, there's another YouTuber called Ordinary Things that I'm friends with. And we were both just experimenting, trying to do stuff on YouTube. And he was kind of like, because I was so obsessed with hip hop, like if you caught me at a house party, I'd be just in the corner trying to tell someone like, you know this 50 Cent song, you know when he's saying this, like this, like I was just obsessed with this stuff and no one was really trying to hear it. And like my homie Ordinary Things, he was like, well, why don't you make some videos about this stuff you're always talking about, like that you're interested in? And it's funny because I remember my reaction, I was like, no one wants to hear like a corny white guy from Bognor Regis talking about hip hop. But he was like, I don't know, give it a go. And I did it, I gave it a go and it went off straight away, man. That Jay-Z one was the first video where it was just like, I was like, what's the most interesting hip hop story that I could just reach for? I wrote down 3 or 4 ideas, that Jay-Z one. I wrote down like the Gucci Mane self-defense killing case, a couple other ideas, but I did that one and I think it got like 20K views organically in a day. And that was like, I'd never seen anything like that, you know? And I just knew I had something right there. So from then on, I just committed myself mentally. I was just like, I'm just gonna keep doing this until it stops, like, until people stop messing with it. And fortunately, you know, people have rocked with it ever since.
Right, and it was the Frank Ocean versus his record label. That was the one that really popped off and got 1 million views.
Yeah, that was one of my first real viral hits because it was like, there was a viral clip of A$AP Rocky kind of explaining that story that was going around. And I was like, oh, I started looking into it. Again, I'm just a fan. So it's like, if I see something, I start looking into it. Like, until I started making this kind of videos, like I would still spend the hours learning about all these hip hop stories because I was just interested. So with that one, you know, I saw that clip go viral. I was like, let me look into it. And I was like, oh, let me make a story out of this. And yeah, like you say, that one just blew out. I think I probably got like, I don't know, 700K plus or something in a week and went on to crack 1 million. And it was that video that got me monetized. It got my watch time up. And from there I was away, you know, after there I had a couple more videos that really hit the algorithm. It was just a crazy time.
Right, and the biggest viral hit you had around that time, I mean, I guess after the Frank Ocean one, was the one about DaBaby and the Wal-Mart shooting?
So before that, I actually had another viral hit. I did the Rick Ross versus 50 Cent beef.
Okay.
That ended up getting like 750 in like a week, and then it got taken down. I got a copyright strike from G-Unit, and it got taken down, but I did a counterclaim, ended up getting it back after a month. But that was like, you know, we were just talking before about getting demonetized and stuff. That was like one of my first YouTube L's of like, oh, this video is going viral, and I just got monetized, and then it got nuked, and then I was just, that was that first experience of like, damn. And also it was like, the copyright claim came from like something at G-Unit Records, so I was like, damn, like 50 got me as well. But I did a counter notification, I ended up getting that video back. But yeah, like I was in the mix at that point. I was like, damn, I can just make a video about something I'm interested in. If I put in the hours and make it good quality stuff, people are gonna rock with it. And then, yeah, the DaBaby one was the first that really went on another level. That got like multiple millions of views. And you know, that thing with DaBaby, so many people had hit me up being like, yo, you need to break down this story. Like I was just starting to make a name for myself with this type of content. So many people were DMing me going, look into DaBaby, look into DaBaby. And yeah, I broke that one down and it just, that one went on another level.
Yeah, I'm looking. That got 6.5 million views to date.
Yeah, that was my most popular video for a good few years. It was crazy.
Right. I interviewed DaBaby after the shooting, but before he was found not guilty.
You didn't ask him any of those questions
well,
about that case?
I couldn't because it was an open murder case.
But he was on Instagram Live talking about it, because when I put that together, I looked at your interview and I'm like, okay, and then I looked at his IG Live afterwards and I'm like, he's kind of talking a lot about this.
Well, yeah, and I mentioned that in the interview, but I didn't want to have him explain any further.
That's the right thing to do.
You know, it would be Exhibit A in his murder case.
You ain't got to explain that to me, you know. I know I know you get a lot of hate, but I personally, I really appreciate the way that you operate. And, you know, you're someone I look up to, so you do the right things in those situations, but, you know, a lot of people just love to hate, man.
Yeah, no, listen, we try to protect our interviewees to the best of our ability. Like, for example, when Keefe D got arrested, Las Vegas PD kept hitting me up to try to get the original footage from our interviews, and I just never responded. And if they ever tried to legally subpoena that footage, I'll get a lawyer and I'll fight it. Because my whole thing is I don't want people to think that they come to my platform and then I turn around and cooperate with the authorities to try to get them busted. No, like I would try to protect them to the best of my ability. Now, sometimes things are out of my control. If you write a book about a murder, then talk about the murder based on the book, and that's used in court, what can I do about it, right? But I'm not gonna go out of my way to try to, you know, because I remember even in that interview, he walked outside with the writer because the co-writer of the book was in the room with us, and he went outside to go talk. He just wanted to take a break and go talk. And my cameraman was like, yo, the mic is still on. And I'm like, turn that shit off.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want any hot mic, nothing. Like, I don't even want to have it. So just as soon as I was told that, I turned it off. We deleted whatever was that. I don't think it was anything. But regardless, my whole thing was, I'm not trying to catch anyone. If you're doing an interview with me, you sign a release form, you're wearing a wire
Yep.
that you put on yourself. You have a microphone pointing at you. You have 3 cameras pointing at you. You know that this is being used and publicly released. There's no gotcha anything moment. And that's that's a line that we have to dance around because, like you said, people like to call me the police and whatever else.
I know you keep it solid, Vlad. You ain't got to explain that to me, but know, I know how people be, and it's often, sometimes it makes me, I'm kind of, I'm one of your sons really out here, to be honest with you. But I see the way people hate and try and accuse you of this and that. But I know it ain't like that. I know that you're doing your stuff with integrity, and if people want to come on here and confess to murders and do all sorts of stuff, bro, that's not your problem.
Well, that gets us to the King Von, rap's first serial killer documentary. This is a big one. Now, what made you decide to actually do it?
Man, this is a long story. I'm gonna have to take you way back to a time when Von was alive, and we were having a little situation. So there was actually a very famous. So if you go back to 2019, right? Von was kind of bursting on the scene. Crazy Story was going crazy, and Von was coming up. Now there's another YouTuber called Trap Geek that did a very big video about Von called The Soft Spoken Assassin. That got something like 12 million views, blew up. It was crazy. Trap Geek's kind of disappeared recently, but he was a friend of mine for a bit, and he did that video about Von. That went super viral, and Von kind of took it to heart. Now I ended up doing a couple videos about Von afterwards, kind of giving my own take on the situation and focusing on some different things that I thought were interesting about him and his career as I got to learn more about him. And in my video, I talked about the situation with KI. More specifically, how, supposedly there were DMs between him and KI that leaked onto 4chan, and, kind of just explain the story that basically there seems to suggest on this forum that people think that he did that murder. He was very upset about this, and he tried to, they gave me 3 copyright strikes because I did 3 little mini videos about him. So you know how it is, 3 copyright strikes, I nearly lost the channel.
Okay, so this is while he's still alive.
While he was still alive. There's a famous tweet that he put out that was something like, don't listen to what them white YouTubers say about me. They don't know what they're talking about or something at the time. And so they were trying to pack my channel, basically. Von's A&R from Empire hit me up with some crazy, threatening messages. Was like, we're going to take your shit down. I ended up on the phone with the guy, and they basically told me, they were like, look, we got these 3 copyright strikes on you, full strikes. We're going to take your channel, but we'll give you your videos back if you go in the back end and trim out the stuff about KI. And I said, well, I want to keep my channel. So I did it. So I trimmed out that stuff. They let me have the videos back. But from there, I was like, I ain't never talking about Von again. This guy's scary. I didn't know the extent of it at that point, but I knew he had a couple bodies. You only got to listen to his music. The guy's talking about having bodies. He was the realest rapper ever. So after that, I was like, I ain't going to talk about Von again. That shit got too dicey.
Well, didn't you say that the Empire guy actually physically threatened you?
That was after the next documentary. But yes,
okay,
same guy,
right.
same guy.
Same guy. Okay, so you had a King Von documentary before this one.
Yeah, there were 3 10-minute videos on a different aspect of his life. So one was Von's past, which was kind of the KI stuff and his history in the streets. Then one was about Von's big case, the Malcolm Stucky case that he beat. And then another one I kind of did, I used to have this thing, and I kind of want to bring it back, but I used to do this thing where I'd sometimes do I'd cover an artist and do a positive story and a negative story. So I did 2 videos about XXXTentacion. I did the positive side of him and his music and the impact he had, and then another video about all the negative stuff with the abuse case that he had with his girlfriend and some bad stuff he was involved in. So at the time I was trying to do this video, it's almost like heaven and hell, the good side of Von and the bad side of Von. I realized it was a vulnerability doing 3 videos on the same artist because they can just pack your channel. But anyway, yeah, I kind of learned a lesson with that. But after that experience, bro, it was obvious to me that he killed KI, because why would he be on my case so much about getting that taken out?
Well, yeah, I interviewed KI's brother.
Great
FBG
interview.
Duck.
Brilliant interview.
And it's a very convoluted story. You kind of hear even Butter telling different versions of the same story.
But Butters, unfortunately, he's not the most trustworthy narrator, but Yeah, it's difficult. But the thing is, I think so many people have told that story now that it's like, I think you can read between the lines of all the content out there about it to kind of get an idea of what possibly went on.
Well, yeah, because according to Butter, what he told police was, because he got shot himself during K.I.'s murder. He got shot in the leg, I believe. And he was right with her and saw her basically about to die. And what he said in my interviews, what he told police was it was a dark-skinned guy with a mole on his face, with a birthmark or something, which is the opposite of what King Von is, right?
Well, there's a real trope in the streets of not giving your ops credit when they get you down type thing, you know what I mean? So I could understand why somebody wouldn't want to give the guy that killed their friend credit, be out here saying, yeah, he did that to me. So it's almost like there's reasons why you might not trust what he said at the time or what he might say now or whatever. But yeah, I know that that's what he said, you know, because there was this other narrative of this guy called Big A supposedly being the killer. You know, he had this nickname called Ask Key, A-S-K-I, like Ask K-I, what I did. So one of the original rumors was that he was responsible. But as time's gone on, more and more kind of indication seems to point towards Von being the guy that did it.
Well, right, because during the O Block 6 trial, when Butter took the stand, didn't they bring up him saying that Von did kill her? Or like when I brought that up, he sort of danced around the topic and said he's got mental issues and something. And
I think what happened was he said in an interview. I'm saying this off the dome here, so I'm not looking at the paperwork. But from what I, if my memory serves me correctly, what I seem to remember was like I think he officially went on record in the interview with them and said Von did it. And then later when he was called to testify on it at trial, he was like, I got mental issues, not really trying to claim that. And I kind of get that because like maybe he doesn't want to give him credit. Maybe when he was in the interview room and he was compelled, maybe he was really saying what really happened. But again, I feel like he's not the best source as far as like trying to get an idea of what really went on, you know? Like I say, he's almost like an untrustworthy narrator on this story.
Right, because I interviewed Trench's News, who said that he was in the area when it happened, and he said he did see King Von in the vicinity. He didn't see him actually shoot her, but he saw him right before it happened. So he put him at the location. Okay, so this is a little bit confusing because according to documents, the Cook County Attorney's Office said that King Von was the shooter of K.I. Now, when FBG Butter made his statement, and we interviewed him about this, he said that it was a dark-skinned guy with a mole on his face. Now, you're telling me that you were there and King Von was there. So who killed K.I.?
Hey, look. That's the person who I seen with a weapon in their hand. We rolled past. He was in the cut, down, looking their way, looking towards Butter them way. That's what made me see them, because I was looking, we was just riding past, and I seen them real fast, and I know all of them. They ain't having no mask or none of that. You know, I be over there, I know they family, so I'm like, damn. And then when they popped out, like, I just never said nothing who it was. And then when it finally, like, I got on the internet, I'm like, shit, Von gone. Von gone. He always amend shit. Shit, he did it. He was there. I seen him do it. You know what I'm saying? But I never told law enforcement that he did it.
And of course, he took the stand also in the O Block 6 case. According to him, he wasn't even compelled. He just wanted to do it. And then there's the whole thing about him being a paid informant. You know, you're not quite sure. He denied it, but according to the trials, it's true. Who knows?
Like, seems like it. You got that. You got O Block J Hood saying that Von went to O Block right after he killed K.I. and said, I just caught K.I. You know, there's that. There's numerous King Von lyrics where he's talking about, I don't want to say the word, but he's got a lyric where he says, I'm shooting everyone, even in here, you know, and supposedly talking about her. There's a lot of different indications, but it's like there's a mountain of things that sort of indicate that. But yeah, Butter's not the best source for this. But at the same time, it seems like when he was in the interview room, when the pressure was on, probably under oath, it seems like that he said that is what happened. But again, he wouldn't be the main source that I'd want to look at if I was trying to work out that situation.
Well, K.I., she's a very interesting figure.
Mm.
They're saying that she killed allegedly 20 people. Butter said something to the effect of she stabbed someone to death at a party. But then other people said, no, it's not true. She didn't kill anybody. It's just she was clout chasing and it made it sound good.
Yeah, I can break it down for you, man. As far as I know, you know, there's been conflicting reports. I couldn't say definitively exactly what she did, but it seems like what happened was there was an article that was written about her. I think it was after her death, but I think she was known before that. But like, you know, a lot of people have said like, you know, the whole thing about her is it's like she's the real life Snoop from The Wire. Yeah. She's like the gangster girl, the female shooter, teenage assassin they used to call her. But from what I understand, you know, I've heard people say that there was a famous news article, I think it was the Chicago Sun-Times after she died, that was like, you know, the life of a gang girl. And I think in that article, they kind of, what people say is that article kind of pumped her up and fluffed her up to be this like assassin. I think a famous quote that I remember being heard was like 17 with 17 bodies. That was one of the things that was floated around. But I think as time's gone on now, I've not seen her implicated in any specific murders. I know that after Taekwon Tyler, her 13-year-old friend, was killed, you know, she went by Taekwon Assassin and was supposedly, you know, looking to catch bodies every day. But I've not seen her associated with any specific murder. And it seems like that Sun-Times article about her is what kind of built the legend of her being this assassin kind of was about. But I've not seen her associated with any bodies personally from my research.
Okay, so according to you, she took credit for a bunch of murders that she didn't actually do, which in turn made her a target to get killed herself.
I'd probably phrase it slightly different, but more a case of like, again, I can't remember whether that article written about her was when she was alive. It might have been after she passed away. But I think after she passed away, I think the legend of her was pumped up a whole bunch. But the thing is, like, I don't think it was like they were looking to kill her because they thought she had all these bodies that she didn't have. Like, the thing with her and Von was personal. You know, from those 4chan leaks, they were going back and forth in DMs. Like, Von was trying to catch this girl. Like, they had history. They were going back and forth on Twitter.
Why was he trying to catch her? Was because she killed people, or why? Why else would he be trying to catch her if she didn't kill anybody?
I think she might have shot him. Like, they definitely had fights and shootings back and forth.
She shot King Von.
I can't remember whether she shot King Von or whether like there was a group that they were part of where there was a shootout happening. There's a famous story where Von caught her on a train and beat her up. Like, that's a known one if you've heard that one before.
Von actually beat up a girl.
Yeah, that's what the people say, and there's tweets going back and forth of them saying that happened. I think I can't remember because I haven't got the paperwork in front of me, but I think maybe there was a story that she'd maybe shot T-Roy or something, but it was personal. They were going back and forth on Twitter. They were saying, yo, we had a bang out here. There was always a rumor that she might have been the one that killed O.D. Perry, that O-Block was named after. Now,
we talked about that. Yeah, we talked about that in the Butter interview, and I don't think he denied that happened.
There's a lot of different...
But then again, other people were saying, no, that wasn't her. And this is all unsolved murders. No one's really going to step up and say, yes, it was me. This is how I did it, because then that would guarantee them life in prison. So it's very dicey.
Well, the thing is, I think, like we were talking about her claiming bodies, like the way she put stuff out on Twitter, she kind of made it seem like she caught OD. You know, she would always put up these tweets, like she would tweet at King Von talking about, yeah, well, remember who made the O and stuff like that. So it was very personal between these two. You know, a lot of their Twitter arguments are still there. Like when I made the documentary, like, I'll keep it real, Vlad, I read every tweet Von ever made while he was alive. Every tweet that's still there, I went all the way to the bottom of the Twitter, read every single one, looked at the date, looked at when stuff was going on, like, I checked all that stuff. So I've seen every conversation that's still up there. I've seen the 4chan leaks. It was personal between Von and KI. And, you know, obviously, you know, he went on to be on that the A&E documentary about her, talking all about her, talking about how he misses her and that he was sad when she was gone. And, you know, transpires that seems like he was the one that did it. You know, it seemed very personal, whether it's the OD thing or the idea that they'd had fights and her side had shot his side and all that stuff. It was personal for sure.
Okay, so when you decided to do this main King Von documentary, you called it Rap's First Serial Killer.
I did.
You knew that was going to cause problems.
So here's the thing. That wasn't the plan from the start, right? So let me take you back. So I did those videos about Von. He nearly packed my channel. After that, I was shook. I took out the KI stuff. He let me slide. And then I was like, I'm never talking about this dude again. Because I was scared. Like, you know, his A&R was threatening me. Von seemingly had killed people. I was like, I ain't talking about this guy again. Let me go back to doing some
I don't think he's going to fly to England to kill you, though. Like, were you actually worried about that?
You know what it is? It's just like, I've explained this before. You probably have the same thing. Like, you know, 95% of the time, your safety, like, is probably not really an issue. But it's just that 1% of the time. What if I want to go to Chicago? What if I want to go to America? I don't know. Anyway.
Well, I think you called me. I think you were like, hey, I'm going to go to LA. Should I have security? I'm like... Yeah, if you hang out in the projects in South Central, but if you're walking down Rodeo Drive, you're not going to need security. Was that right?
Yeah, you're right. But you know what it is? Like, this is the thing is like, I feel like with the content we make, I feel like most people fuck with it. Yeah, you're going to have a bunch of haters, but I'm less scared of like a gangster pulling up on me and shooting me. I'm more scared of like a crazy person that hates what I do and thinks that I'm a culture vulture and they're just crazy and they got a gun and they could do some crazy shit. Like, I'm worried about that more than I'm worried about King Von coming up, pulling up on me. But anyway, setting that aside, going back to what you were saying, I was basically said I'm gonna leave Von alone. And then November the 4th, 2020, I was doing an interview with another rapper in the UK. See on the news, Von lost his life. Was November the 4th? Or no, it was November the 6th. I see the news that Von lost his life. And I don't know, something about that, man. It really shook me up. Like, the moment I saw that news, it really affected me, because in spite of what had happened, I was a huge fan of Von's music. I would still listen to Von's music all the time. And seeing after he died, and then slowly learning about this situation that he'd got in, the YoungBoy, the Quando situation, what happened with Lil Tim, it just got to the point where I was like, you know what? He's gone. I'm gonna do the full story. I'm gonna break down his whole life, because unfortunately his life's over now, and I'm gonna really drill deep and find out really what was going on. And my whole point of approaching that story, I didn't say, let me do a video called Rap's First Serial Killer that's gonna go viral. My goal with that story was, I want to answer the question once and for all, did Von really have all these bodies? Because he's the one who said in songs, talk about bodies, I got a few, 4+3, 3+2. Let's talk about bodies, I got several. You ain't a killer if you only got 2 bodies. Von's got lyric after lyric talking about how many bodies he's got. So my goal for the project was say, let's find out once and for all, true or false, does Von really have bodies? And once I started looking, and I'm like, damn, it's looking like he's got all these bodies. This matches up, this tweet, that news article, this police report, it all started adding up. And it all changed when I Googled, I was like, let me just look up like the FBI's definition of what a serial killer is. And I looked that up, and it said a serial killer is somebody that kills, I think it was 3 or more people in different locations with a month, potentially like more than a month between the murders, and like patterns of behavior or people getting personal gratifications of the killing. And it kind of dawned on me at a certain point. I was like, I think this guy was a serial killer. I think he matches the description. And I thought that was a really interesting conversation. And that's when the title of the video came about. But honestly, I think a lot of people think it was like some, I don't know if Machiavellian's the right term, but just some, like, I was trying to go super viral. But I was just doing the research, trying to prove or disprove what Von had said in his own lyrics. And it just dawned on me at a certain point that, like, I think this guy ticks the boxes for a serial killer. And the rest is history, I guess.
Right, but you knew once you put that word, serial killer, in the title, you could have it sprinkled in through the audio, whatever, but you titled it King Von, Rap's First Serial Killer. Now, there's been other people that have killed people in hip hop. Gucci, although that story is a little convoluted, but, people have caught bodies, some of which don't talk about it, some of which went to jail for it. But a serial killer, you're kind of putting an extra layer on top of it. Well, because that's not, being a killer has some level of respect depending on who you talk to, but a serial killer is generally, not respected in society. No one wants to be a serial killer. Even like, for example, when I interviewed Sammy the Bull or Terrence Gangster Williams, and I've asked them, do they consider themselves serial killers? They're like, nah, I wouldn't say that. Like, they wouldn't, even though Sammy killed like 14 people, he would not take the title of serial killer himself, although by the definition you just said that the FBI lays out, he's a serial killer.
Let me tell you why I think Von's a serial killer. Now, I might not say Sammy the Bull's a serial killer. The reason that I thought Von was a serial killer, because I've come across people that have killed a lot of people in gang wars before. I did the video about No Limit, G Herbo's crew. There's a guy called Mad Max that, they say he had 9 or 10 bodies, right? But I think for me, where I felt he became a serial killer was, you got these multiple murders. There's more than 3 murders, more than a month apart. Some of them are years apart. It was really like, when he became famous, the personal gratification that he seemed to get out of killing, I would say he was responsible for the murder of FBG Duck in a way that he felt responsible. He tweeted a goat emoji like minutes after Duck was killed. He got a lot of personal gratification out of these killings. I think he wanted to continue these killings, and he wanted the whole world to know. I wish I'd have thought of this when I made the documentary. I've only thought of it after, but I feel like Von, he's the closest I could describe him to a traditional serial killer is the Zodiac Killer. Because Von killed all these people, he became famous, and he wanted everyone to know that he killed all these people. You ain't a killer if you only got 2 bodies. Like, talk about bodies, I got a few, 4+3, 3+2. Like Von wanted the whole world to know that he was killing. He was putting out these codes. He was getting this personal gratification from killing, and he still wanted to kill. He wanted to have Duck killed. He wanted to have Man killed. There was a supposed rumored body in Atlanta. Now, I kind of disproved that in the video, but it's like, he wanted people to know he was a killer. I think he was more interested in getting people killed than rapping. And I think it's that element. Like Sammy the Bull was killing for just business, and he ain't still trying to kill people right now. And he ain't hinting towards, in his interviews, there's bodies you don't know about, and I want you to know about them. I feel like the way Von carried himself, the way that he communicated these murders to the public through his music, and he got charged up off of that. I think these are the elements that make him like a serial killer, like the Zodiac killer, sending these letters out to try and getting some excitement, like wanting to be caught. And I think these are the elements that, just to me, that made me feel like he ticked those requirements to the max. And if he'd have never started rapping and started teasing the world, trying to let everyone know that he killed these people, I wouldn't say he's a serial killer. I would, you'd say he's a gang assassin, he's a hitman, he's a gangbanger. But it was the way that he got so much gratification out of letting the world know. And we can get into it in a minute. But there's kind of just it's more like the way that he got so much out of being a killer and having everyone know he was a killer. And realistically, bro, that's why everyone was into Von. Like, people want to rewrite history now and have a go at me like, oh, Trapl Ross, you're capping. Von wasn't really like that. If Von was alive and you said, you ain't really like that, you got no bodies, he'd slap you.
Well, you broke down all the people that he allegedly killed or was involved in their murder. It starts with King Duck, then Dirty Rel, Modell, P5, Lil James, Lil Mark, Malcolm Stucky, K.I., who we mentioned, Man, Tyreek, and then FBG Duck. So now, FBG Duck, let me just say this. Clearly, he wasn't physically involved with the killing of FBG Duck. But there's a rumor that he put up 100,000, 250,000. It's hazy.
Can I just clarify? So that's the list of bodies that I discuss in the video. That's the list of the murders that he's been associated with. Like, if you see what I say in the video, especially the end, I kind of circled. There's 7 basically that I would say there's enough evidence for me to conclude I believe that he did those.
Okay, so I just listed 1, 2, 3,
12,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I might be missing one.
Maybe it is 11.
Yeah, this is 11. But you're saying there's 7?
7 that I would say I've seen enough evidence, yeah. Because in the video, I think at the end of the video, I circle 7. Because this is the thing, the whole idea for that video was like, it's like true or false, every single body. The Tyreek one, for example, if you see in the documentary, I essentially explained what people say about that. There was this party in Atlanta and a guy got killed, and some people say Von and his crew were involved. There was a fight that led to a shooting. But I've got, in that video, I refer to some footage where Tyreek's uncle basically says, nah, that's just a rumor, like, we don't think Von was really involved. That's just some internet shit. So it's kind of like the point of the video is I'm trying to look at every single body, true or false, and I conclude by saying I think 7, the specific 7.
And who are the 7 out of the ones I just named?
So Doc, Rel,
Modell?
Doc, Rel, Modell, P5, Malcolm.
Okay, hold on.
K.I.
Lil James?
Lil James.
Lil Mark?
Not Lil Mark. He was there for that. He filmed at the crime scene afterwards, but story goes that was some other people. Anyway.
Malcolm Stucky?
Malcolm Stucky. You got K.I.?
K.I.
Yeah.
So Man, Tyreek, and FBG Duck is...
That's the thing. Like you say, he didn't actually kill FBG Duck, but at the same time, the way he was wrapped up in that and seemingly... Because even it's like the thing with the $100,000 bounty, it's kind of like, did he, didn't he? He goes to the hood, he's breaking down $100,000. But as far as it goes, he was basically the leader of the gang at that point. Like, King Von was the leader of the O-Block gang at that point, by the looks of it. If he was here, he'd have been wrapped up in that RICO. I think he'd be doing life now.
Okay. And what's interesting about the documentary is that you would tie when the murders would happen, like the actual time the murders would occur, and then tweets that he would do. And it was like almost minutes apart.
He's 17 minutes after murders. He's going, ha ha, like, who died? The thing with P5, P5 had another nickname, Crack. King Von's got tweet after tweet. Like, we're talking like within hours of the murder, talking about how many hollows can you take before you crack. Like, P5 got smoked this week, then Malcolm, who's next? I think that was like the October 2012. So it's like, again, it's like people are like, oh, Ross is capping. It's like, I'm just looking at the evidence. And it's like, it's very hard to look at that and be like, it seems like the man did the murder and tweeted about it, to me. But what I'm doing is I'm connecting the tweets with the time of the murder from the Chicago Tribune article, and then any lyrics or interview segments that have come out later, and any police reports that I could get my hands on, as far as putting all of that information together and making a compelling case. I could never sit here and say, I know 100% definitively that this happened or that happened. But the whole point of the video is I'm just saying, look, these are the people that apparently he had a hand in doing something to. Let's look at all of the evidence. Let's look at the tweets and the articles and the lyrics and the interviews and the Instagram lives. And let's lay all that evidence out and just say, what does it look like? That's the purpose of the documentary.
I mean, it sounds pretty insane that you would commit a crime that has a life sentence associated with it. Mm-hmm. And then somehow go on social media and connect yourself on any level.
You know, it's really interesting because it's like, I feel like this video, a lot of the stuff that I do that's based in Chicago, it really just drives home just how crazy of a time that was. Because I feel like you got these young guys running around killing people and tweeting about it. Look, I don't think Von in 2012, when he was catching his first bodies, would have ever imagined that he would have been a famous recording artist. I mean, when Von came out of jail in was it end of 2017, started hanging around Durk, he had said, I didn't have any interest in rapping. I was trying to get around Durk and rob rappers. When he's in 2012 tweeting about his bodies, and again, this is why I got some sympathy for Von. I even say in the video, we're talking about a guy whose dad was shot dead with a sniper rifle at 11. Yeah, I'm saying that he's a serial killer, but I'm also saying he's a product of this messed up environment at the same time. And I got some sympathy for that. Von in 2012, he probably just thought, I'm just going to keep killing people until I'm doing life in jail. Who cares about the tweets? And at that time, Twitter was kind of a new thing. So I don't think he was even thinking that far ahead, and that was such a crazy time in Chicago. I'm doing, I've done the No Limit story. I'm doing another story. That's a big Chicago story at the moment. And it's like, you go back and read a lot of those tweets because there are other people behaving in the same way on Twitter, catching bodies, tweeting about it. You got people like, C-Day from 600 catching bodies, tweeting about it, saying, killing a dude feels like sex, all that kind of thing. It's crazy, but that was the mindset at the time. It seems like 2012 Chicago, it was just people didn't even think that Twitter was something that could get used against you in a case. And sadly, in a lot of these cases, most of these guys have died before tweets could ever be used against them. It's only me that's just using it as a way to kind of understand what was going on, that it's kind of being brought to the forefront.
Well, at one point, King Von gets arrested for a murder and 2 attempted murders. Mm-hmm. Who was the murder that he was being charged with?
That was the Malcolm Stucky one, where he had the co-defendant, a guy called Big Mike, that's actually just come home recently.
Right, yeah, Big Mike is doing interviews about it. Well, Big Mike basically cooperated against King Von.
Well, it was a mess, right? Because essentially, I think they separated them. I think Big Mike initially was basically what I understood was Big Mike screwed up, and he basically, trying to get his way out of it, he said, yeah, I let off shots, but Von was the one that killed him. And then Von kept it quiet. And so you got this guy saying he let off shots, this guy saying nothing. And then in the end, they were like, well, you're going to have to either flip on Von or you're getting life, or whatever he was going to get. And then he was like, okay, I'm going to switch on Von. Waited all the way up to the trial. And then at the trial, he was like, no, I'm going to keep it solid. So Von got out completely scot-free because of the way Big Mike handled it. I don't know if that was on purpose or just it was a mess or Big Mike slipped up. But essentially, Big Mike took the whole rap. Von kept it quiet because Big Mike admitted, I let off shots. Well, you're screwed. Von didn't say shit. And that's what the whole song Why He Told is all about. Von, he's got that lyrics, what does he rap? He says, we would have figured it out. You took the easiest route. That whole song is about Big Mike and why he told, why he slipped up. They probably, what does he rap? He says something like, they probably gave your dumbass some food and said you was getting out. Sit your dumbass down. So Von kind of breaks it down in that song, but the way that all went out, it was just fluky luck that Von was able to beat that case. He kept it solid. Mike took the whole rap. And then, Von was in jail 2014 to December 2017 on that case, I believe. And then he got out, linked up with Durk. He'd had, supposedly at that point, he had them 7 bodies under his belt, started a rap career, and Durk just put him on and it just went crazy.
Well, how did Big Mike, because he's home now, he's doing interviews himself. We actually spoke to him about potentially doing something. So someone died, he admits to being a shooter, but not the killer. How did he end up coming home?
I think, again, this is off the top of my head, so I haven't got the paperwork in front of me, but I think what happened was he got something like 18 years for the murder, and then, maybe he served that happened in, 2014? He just came home this year, so he probably ended up, serving 9-10 years of an 18-year sentence.
Oh, he got 50% over a state case. Okay, I guess that makes sense. Who do you think killed Malcolm?
Von. I don't know, but I just feel like the way that played out and the way that Von behaves. I mean, you see that interview on The Breakfast Club where Von's with Durk and he's beating the thing and Charlemagne's like, I just find that it to me, like that moment in that Breakfast Club interview is the moment where I was like, Von's on some dark shit. Like that bit where he says like, you know, Charlemagne, Durk's like, yeah, you know, this is Von, he just got home, and he's like, oh, what were you in for? And Von's like, yeah, body in 2 attempts. And he's like, how'd you beat that? Like, how'd you beat that? You must be innocent. And Von's like, nah, lawyer. And it's like, the way Von's talking is like, I did that shit. Like, he was like, how'd you beat it? And he's like, lawyer. And it's like, if you watch that back, it's like, it's actually quite dark. Like, you got to read between the lines of the way they're doing it. And like, you know, Von's saying stuff. If you watch that interview closely, you see like, Von's saying some crazy stuff and Durk's coughing to be like, shut up. You know, if you watch it carefully, you can actually see this dynamic, and it's dark. Von's like, body in 2 attempts. And like, Charlemagne's like, body? And then Von's like, yeah, and 2 attempts. Like, he was proud. You could see in that moment, he was proud to be saying that. And that's a crazy moment, because Charlemagne ain't really clocked what he's dealing with. You know, the type of dude that he's sat there talking to. And, you know, go back and watch just that little segment of that interview. When you really read between the lines and watch closely what's going on, it's actually crazy.
Well, yeah, because I remember there was a part of the documentary where you showed Von getting arrested, and he's essentially bragging to the cops.
He says the same thing.
Yeah.
Body in 2 attempts.
Yeah, I just came home from beating a body in 2 attempts.
He's proud.
You're telling this to the cops,
as
they're arresting you.
The cops are like,
this is not going to help you. They're not going to be like, really? Well, we'll let you go then.
But this goes back to the serial killer thing, where it's like, Von clearly got a lot of gratification about the things he'd done, and I felt like it was so much of it was about, it was more than just like for example, I did this story on No Limit, right? And there's a gang in the kind of were at war with like G Herbo's crew called Kill to Survive, KTS, right? And it's like a guy KTS Von, you know, he allegedly had killed a few people, but it's like the name of that, like it really stuck with me, of like Kill to Survive. I think a lot of these gang members, they're killing to survive. It's kill or be killed. I'm on the block. If I don't kill you first, you're going to kill me. That kill to survive mindset, I'm not saying it's okay, but it's like, you can kind of sympathize with it a little bit more than I felt like Von. It wasn't kill to survive. It was like kill for pleasure. Like, he's got tweets where he says, me and T-Roy, we kill for fun. Like, I'm itching to catch my next body, all this kind of stuff. Like, there was something, he was getting more out of that than the average gang member that was killing to survive. And it's just all these little moments, these interviews, like you say, with that, him getting arrested and he's just like, I just beat a body. Like, I couldn't even put myself in the shoes of being, we were out, one of the homies got pulled over earlier on today, and like, I'm just so shook of the police. The thought that I would say to a cop, like, yeah, I just got home from beating a body, like that's crazy to me. So it really just goes to show you how extreme he was, to be honest.
Well, he gets out and he links up with Durk, who at the time was one of the biggest rappers. Why do you think Durk really started rocking with Von that closely?
Well, you know, Durk's from an area and a set called Lamron, right? And so you got Lamron, you got Front Street, which is like Fredo Santana's area, and then you got O Block, obviously King Von, and then you got 600, which is like LA Capone, Rondo, and them. But they're all kind of like BDs, you know, that's the sort of Black Disciple network of gangs that are sort of, they're in the neighborhood, they're kind of close by to each other, but they're kind of clicked up, right? So like, you know, whether it's Chief Keef or Durk, like there's early Chief Keef lyrics where he's talking about, you know, T-Roy, famous guy from O Block that caught a bunch of bodies, was Von's best friend. You know, I did a video about him recently. And then you've got like, you know, these crews, they're all kind of rocking with each other. So like, you know, Durk might drop a lyric, like, I swear he's got lyrics like shouting out Rondo number 9. So they would know like who was the shooter from each block. Like each block's like got a guy that's kind of catching a lot of bodies. You know, whether it's 600, it's D-Rose. How many lyrics have been, don't make me call D-Rose boy, he's 600 boy, and he keep that pole boy. So it's like each one of these areas, they're all clicked up, all these BDs. So, you know, Durk would have grown up around Von. He would have known Von's reputation. But I think, honestly, what was really smart is like, I think Durk could see the potential in this. Like, I think at first he was just trying to help Von. Like Durk says, like Von says, he was just trying to get around Durk so that he could rob rappers. And I think at some point, he just was like, let me just hop in the booth and start rapping. You know, I think Durk could see the potential in getting these real street guys rapping. You know, he got Durk and THF Bezu in the studio to do that song, Beat That Body. They had both just beat bodies. And even then, I try and drive this home in the documentary. It's like, how crazy is that? Durk kind of like executive produced this song of these two friends from his neighborhood. THF's another crew that was kind of friendly with Durk's lot. And it's like Durk basically almost like A&R'd this song of like, let me take two of my friends that just beat bodies and put them on a track and call it Beat That Body. And that song is a banger. And it's like, I think Durk could see the potential. To me, and you'll find this interesting, I've got this theory that like right now, there's this really interesting dynamic going on where drill music has almost become this intersect between hip hop, gangster rap, and real true crime people are really doing the stuff they're rapping about. And I don't know whether it was a self-awareness or maybe Durk just randomly fell into it, but it's almost like he's like, I got these guys that are killers and they're out and they beat their bodies. Let's make some music out of it. Let's make some money out of it. I wonder whether Durk could have ever imagined just how big Von could have ended up being. But once Von started rapping, I think people in the area and people in Chicago knew his body of work and knew what he was on. And it's like, it was really that song Problems that he released where it's just like, yo, this is the killer that's rapping about all the killings. Like, this is for real. Or even Beat That Body. It's like, for people that like hip hop and gangster rap and true crime, realistically, this shit's irresistible. Like, this guy's really doing their murders. I can go on Google and look up them murders he was involved in, and that shit's real. So I feel like Durk kind of put Von into that, and that shit exploded bigger than anyone could have imagined.
What was the situation that Durk and Von were involved in? It was a shooting.
Yeah, so there was a shooting in Atlanta. So here's the thing, right? You know this better than anyone. You know, you spoke to FBG Duck. If you blow up as a rapper in Chicago, you need to get the hell out of the city, right? And Durk's probably the smartest rapper to ever come out of Chicago, right? He got out of the city, he went to Atlanta.
I would actually give that to Chief Keef.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, facts.
He was the
facts.
original one.
Facts.
He
was
blew
the OG.
up, went to Calabasas,
Still alive.
and he's still alive and making millions of dollars.
Yeah, man, it's sad that people get caught up and they go back, you know. Durk kind of, look, it says it all, right, that Von said, look, I was trying to get around Durk to rob rappers. So Von was bringing this kind of negative energy around. Durk puts Von in the studio with Bezu and starts making these songs together. And Durk's kind of like, look, Von, like, you can make it as a rapper. He brings Von out to Atlanta to come and hang out with him. You know, Durk's chilling in the mansion in Atlanta. They're recording, they're doing all of this stuff. But, you know, bringing sort of that Chicago energy over to Atlanta, Von was kind of still deep in the streets. You know, there's rumors of still things that he was involved in 2018, 2019, when he was going back and forth from Chicago and Atlanta. And so they end up in a situation where, again, the specific details of exactly what happened and why that went down, I've never really been able to truly get to the bottom of it. But it was basically like Von, Durk, I think it was THF Bezu and another guy from Chicago called Hella Bands. They were kind of rolling around in Atlanta, you know, driving around in this Trackhawk with 300 written on the side of it. And, you know, they ended up getting in some issue with some guy where they'd been somehow finessed out of, I think it was $20,000, right? So they end up catching this guy in a parking lot in Atlanta, and it's still unclear exactly who did what, right? But the dude ends up getting shot, and they take their 20 bands back, basically, right? He doesn't get killed. I think he got shot in the leg. The guy, what's the name of the victim? I can't remember the name of the guy that got shot. But anyway, that happens. I guess I think that dude who they shot ended up catching a case or something, and I think maybe he then, you know, gave some info that led them to basically, you know, work out that there was 4 guys in a car, Von, Durk, Bezu, Hella Bands, they're all together. The story was somebody was, two people were shooting, and the feds were saying we could see Durk on camera shooting out the car. Now, that's when you saw that famous clip of Durk and Von in prison jumpsuits in court, you know, having their first court session about that situation. You know, famously, you know, Von said it, I think, or maybe Durk or Von said it in the No Jumper interview, that, you know, they couldn't be around each other because of that case. They weren't allowed to associate with each other. But by that time, Von's a rapper, right? So you've got Von's career, he's kind of getting his thing going, he's independently making music. Durk put him on, but they can't actually collaborate, they can't meet up. And, you know, Durk ends up turning himself in. He did that song, Turning Myself In, on that case. And kind of Durk and Von, they end up getting on bail. And that case ultimately never gets resolved because Von gets killed before that case can actually be tried. And then the charges end up being dropped against Durk. And I think the DA said if Von was alive, he would be charged with the shooting of the gentleman that got shot in that case. But that, I feel, is a perfect example of, like, Durk kind of imported that Chicago energy, and Von was still clearly look at how he ended up passing away. Von was clearly a loose cannon who was still on smoke. He wasn't acting like he was a famous rapper, even though by then, I think Crazy Story had already dropped. That was like February 2019, maybe? Von was basically starting to pick up steam as a rapper. Beat That Body was in 2018, so by February 2019, when that case popped off, because it was a few months, like that shooting happened, I think, February 2019, and then Von and Durk were still in the mix. You know, there's other situations that happened in between, and then a few months passed, and then the feds the cops kind of worked out what was going on and locked them up. But that was a case I felt where Von was not really thinking like a rapper, he was still thinking like a shooter. Durk brought him over, and whatever that situation happened, I think Durk brought that negative energy around, Von brought that negative energy around Durk, and it's ironic because I feel like all that negativity and that gang shit, it kind of brought that respect and that like drill shit back to Durk, who he'd been trying to do pop records and stuff. I think Von brought him back to that kind of street. He brought his street cred kind of back up, if that makes sense. And that situation was kind of like, oh yeah, Durk's really out here. Durk's getting people shot. Durk's in court. So that was that situation. Sorry, that was a long answer.
No, it's all good. And people have been kind of wondering whether after King Von died, did Durk cooperate against Von, because Von was already dead, because his charges were dropped. But you're saying on video it shows Durk shooting or what? Or
originally,
I've never seen the video.
No, I've not seen it either. But originally, I think the prosecutors were saying they had Durk on video. Maybe they didn't have Durk on video, or maybe
why would they drop the charges if they have him on video?
Well, exactly.
See what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like even with one of the shooters dead, if they have video of a second shooter, why would they drop the charges?
And a lot of people, I think a lot of people just, I feel like with the hip hop culture right now, especially you've got people like 1090 Jake exposing, is someone a snitch is such a big question that I think people want to put that snitch jacket on Durk, like, oh, he probably told on Von to get out of that case. There's been no evidence to indicate that. If they had Durk on camera shooting, they would love to get him wrapped up and do that.
Right.
So I feel like it was probably Von shooting. They probably had Von on camera shooting, probably.
Makes a little more sense. Okay, so that situation happens, but Von keeps building. Crazy story, took her to the O. I mean, he's basically becoming the biggest new gangster rapper in hip hop. Me and 100K Track were trying to get him in for an interview. It was in process. We just had to he was moving around and we were trying to catch up to him. But, I interviewed Track and a bunch of his other artists. So this was gonna happen. And then the situation in Atlanta happened. Now, you kind of broke it down in the documentary where at one point, Von and NBA YoungBoy were actually kind of cool with each other. And Quando Rondo, they were kind of hanging out. Quando and Von were hanging out together. And it seemed like everything's cool, everyone's friendly, everyone's hot right now. Where do things take a left turn?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of speculation. I'll be honest, I feel like I never truly got to the bottom of the exact moment where things fell apart. But, there was rumors that Von and YoungBoy had maybe had a collab. There's tweets of Von tweeting at YoungBoy saying like, why are you holding on to that shit? Let's drop it type stuff. Durk named Quando, Rondo, and YoungBoy in a list of his 50 most influential artists, I think in 2018 or 2019. Durk really had respect for YoungBoy and Quando. I personally feel like, honestly, I think YoungBoy and Quando's style of that hood pain music, I think that really inspired a lot of Durk's style and the style that really made Durk famous, the singing gangster singing about his pain, which I think is incredible. It's incredible. Like, you want to talk about hip-hop artistry, I think that's some of the most incredible artistry as far as like, anyone can jump and scream into a mic how they want to kill their ops, but people that can really open up about their pain and what they're going through and the experiences, I feel like that shows like a true high-level artist. And I think Quando, YoungBoy, and then Durk, they've really created this sound that I think is very important and really sums up how people feel. But anyway, it seemed like there was some sort of collab or something was going on and then it didn't drop. And then, Von kind of famously got on Instagram Live listening to YoungBoy and said, you got cap in your raps. He's capping like, I'm on YoungBoy's ass. And I think he's with BJ from O Block. And he's like, what? Like, you beefing YoungBoy now? And he's like, yeah, I'm on his ass now. He's capping in his raps. So you can kind of, you can see this little tension brewing. But things really popped off. It was in, I think it was August, I think it was 2020, when Von seemingly was like, let me try and get this rap beef thing for clout to supercharge my career. He ended up getting YoungBoy's baby mama, Jania, at some sort of studio session. There was talk that they were going to make a song together. There was rumors that they slept together. And, then YoungBoy ends up getting Asian Doll over his house to do a song. There's rumors that they slept together. And it really, it seemed like Von started dragging baby mamas into this and just escalated this thing to a level where it was out of control. YoungBoy was posting on Instagram that, he had some crazy post where he posted a picture with his son and he's like, when my son grows up, he's going to fuck your daughter because you're messing with my baby mama. Like crazy stuff. Real fighting, killing talk that's just like, that's a serious violation. And, within a couple months, Von's catching Quando in a parking lot swinging on him. And, Lil Tim's there and the rest is kind of history.
Well, before then, though, there was a video of King Von being really friendly with YoungBoy's baby mother. What's her name?
Jania, no, that's what I was talking about.
Jania.
Yeah,
Okay, right,
That was
right.
August 2020. That's the thing,
and
yeah.
it seemed like in the documentary, didn't Von say that he has a sex tape with her or something like that? And
then like Von's sister, Kayla B, was tweeting, I seen that nasty ass on a sex tape. And so there was a lot of, there was all these hints that there was a sex tape and that they had a song. And like Von was tweeting like, oh, the cover art to this is going to be crazy. Like there's going to be a naked picture of her on the cover art. Like really pushing YoungBoy's buttons, to be honest. Like when you go back and look at that stuff, you're like, bro, that's fighting talk, that's killing talk. I'd never talk about the mother of someone's child like that. That's crazy. But he's on that Chicago killer energy. But like he was really leaning into it. He had YoungBoy's baby mama at studio session. You know, people were saying that he'd smashed. There was lyrics. You know, there's that it was posthumously released, but there's a song with Von and PNB Rock where he says something like, you know, said something like his baby mama head good, but the pussy weak, or something like that. Just gunning after him, making out like he smashed Jania. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know. But you know, and then YoungBoy's get back was he got Asian Doll, who was Von's ex. They broke up around that time, around his house, and then there was rumors that YoungBoy was chopping Asian Doll as a get back. But that was like that's the most crazy thing, is like literally within days of YoungBoy being seen with Asian Doll, Von's dead. And that's a coincidence, but that's crazy.
Okay, so FBG Duck gets killed a few months before King Von gets killed. And you've put Duck on this list of Von's victims. So was it 7 people that got arrested over the FBG Duck murder?
7 people implicated.
Yes.
One of them was dead before the arrests landed. Right. That was Zell.
Killed himself, right?
Yeah.
That's what they say.
I know. I've got a little short video coming on him, so I know a lot about that situation, so I can talk about that, but yeah, it might not be that relevant.
Okay, so ultimately the trial happens with the O Block 6. They were all found guilty. They haven't been sentenced on this date, but from what I understand, these are mandatory life sentences. Now, from what I understand, one of the guys whose girlfriend Duck was sleeping with called up the other guys and said, oh, Duck is out here. He pulled out a gun on me. He's chasing me around. And then they all posse up and then they go and kill him.
It was Teasy, yeah.
Teasy, exactly. How does this tie into King Von putting money on his head? And if that's really the case, how come that never came up in trial on any level?
There's a lot of stuff I'm surprised it didn't come up in trial. So you know the Took Her to the O video, the music video for Took Her to the O by King Von. In that video, he's got an actor playing FBG Duck that he kills on camera and leaves dead in the street. Now, I say this in the video, and I've said this so many times, I cannot stress enough to people, how crazy is it that this guy made a music video in February 2020, where he depicted himself killing FBG Duck. He says a big goofy dude, missed calls on the phone, say Duck. He says Duck. The guy looks like he's killing Duck in a music video, and 6 months later, Duck's dead in the street, laid out exactly the same way. I do a side-by-side of, they left Duck the way that Duck was in the Took Her to the O music video, right?
Yeah,
I'm not saying, but what I'm saying is like I feel like people don't realize how crazy that is. So Duck and Von had been going back and forth for years, right?
Yes.
There'd been these rumors that, you know, way back, like Duck had like beaten up Von on the school bus or something.
Right,
like,
well, and there was also Duck dropped the Dead Bitches video right before he got killed, where he talks about all the O Block guys who are dead.
T-Roy specifically, who was
T-Roy
Von's best friend.
specifically, and you know, King Von was calling himself V-Roy on his Twitter. That was how close those two were.
They were best friends. You know, T-Roy taught King Von how to move in the streets. You know, they were best friends. You know, he was going by V-Roy. T-Roy was sort of infamous as, you know, the big killer for O-Block during that period. But the thing with Duck, just like KI, it was personal. They were going back and forth for years. Like, Von and them had been trying to kill Duck for years. And to be honest, Duck was the trophy. And, you know, you even said it yourself in that interview, like, you told Duck that he should have moved out of Chicago, man. It's tragic that he didn't, but it's like, he really was the trophy. He was the biggest GD. He was the biggest guy from 63rd, the biggest guy from STL. He was the hood trophy. Regardless of whether it Took Her to the O or Dead Bitches, I don't think there's anybody they could have killed that would have made them happier than FBG Duck, unfortunately. And the real unfortunate case is it seems that Von got on and was making millions through his music, or at least hundreds of thousands at this point, and he was putting that money back in the streets. He's on video going back to O-Block, giving everybody cash. Now, look, I don't think that cash was going into stocks and bonds. Okay, I don't know where that cash that Von was breaking down for the gang in the hood was going, but like, you know, Von loved his gang. He loved the gang war. He loved rapping about it. He loved rapping about murders. I think Von seemed more happy when he found out Duck was dead than having a hit song, to be honest with you. Like, that's just the impression that I get from his music, the way that he acted. You know, there's that clip of him, he's in a designer store with one of the guys from O Block, and it's like 2 days after Duck's dead, and he's like, ain't no more FBG. And he's like, he's like, guess that Duck's dead. And like everyone in the comments saying Duck's dead. You know, even before Duck, I think maybe like a couple weeks before Duck died, Von's on Instagram Live singing Slide, like Duck's song, making fun of him. And just being like, yeah, he's goofy, like, yeah, fuck this guy. Like, it was so personal. I don't think there's anything I think Von having a platinum record was like a drop in the ocean compared to how great he must have felt trying to kill FBG Duck. 10 years they've been looking for FBG Duck, these guys. That's how I feel.
Okay, but why did this not come up in trial?
I don't think it needed to.
Out of all 6 guys, nobody said this guy who's now dead put up this money. And that, I guess it doesn't really help you.
Yeah. If Von was alive...
Taking money for a hit, I guess, doesn't really say, oh, okay, well, you're free to go then.
If Von was alive, I think they would have thrown all of that in there. But I think because he was gone, and they had him all on camera, so it's like, you know, when it comes to the feds, it's like, well, we've got all this kind of conjecture stuff going on here. They had them all on camera doing that shit, going from their homes to the murder and then back. They didn't need any of that stuff. It was cut and dry. Just that surveillance footage kind of did the job. So I don't think they needed that. I think if Von was alive... Bro, Von tweeted a goat emoji, like, we're talking like 30, 40 minutes after Duck was killed, and then he's just tweeting all of this cryptic stuff that's like, you know, it's over with, you know, ain't no more FBG. I think he was just so gassed. And to me, like, the real nastiest example is that 2 days before Von died, or maybe 1 day before Von died, he's in that interview with DJ Academics, and Academics is like, oh, you know, what do you think about FBG Duck? And he's like, man, I couldn't sleep at night after that happened, man, you know. And he's trolling, and then he's like, hang on a second. He's laughing off camera. You can hear him laughing. Like, you can see BJ in the back, like for a split second in that video, like, and, you know, he starts eating cereal out the box. Like, that's psychopath behavior.
You said eating the cereal is alluding to him being a serial killer?
Yeah, he had a bunch of tweets as well, like years ago, back when he was catching the bodies, saying, I'll shoot an N-word and eat some cereal. And he used to have these tweets where he'd be like, I don't think you understand how much I love cereal. Now, to be honest, like, look, that's not proof that he's a serial killer by any means. But I just feel like the guy kept making these little references to cereal. And there was always rumor, like, this is a funny thing, right? People are like, oh, I can't believe Trapl or Ross put the jacket of serial killer on Von. Watch the first 5 minutes of that video, of that documentary, and I play a clip of Academics saying, I think Von might be a serial killer from way back. So I'm not even the first person who said it. Von had ops. I can't remember who it was, but there's someone in an interview that's like one of Von's ops, and they're doing an IG Live, and they're like, bro, Von was damn near a serial killer. Like, we were terrified of Von pulling up. So it's like, that had already been said. So it's not like I came up with the whole serial killer thing. Like, Axe said it before me. There's a stream that predate my video where Axe going, damn, Von might be a serial killer. So it's kind of like, sorry, I lost my thread there, but yeah, that's kind of how I see it.
Well, according to your research, did FBG Duck kill anybody, or was it just songs?
I've not seen any evidence that, like, I've not seen any kind of theory or anything that Duck had killed people. I understood that he'd shot people and that he was definitely involved. His brother, FBG Brick, who obviously was killed by essentially Von's friends, by the looks of it. Yeah, that murder's still unsolved, but obviously Duck's mother's saying that maybe there's going to be some updates. There's a lot of rumors that maybe some of the people were known people from O Block or 600 that aren't even alive anymore. But, you know, Duck's mother even says, like, Brick was really in the streets like that. Duck was doing shit and shooting people, but as far as I know, Duck hadn't killed anyone. But he was, before Ruger did GD's Anthem, Duck was the face of the GDs in Chicago.
Really, it's too bad. I interviewed FBG Duck twice. Cool dude, man. I begged him to move out of Chicago, and he argued with me on both cases. The second time, it was right after Brick got killed.
And, you know,
I was just like, yo, you need to get out. Nah, I know how to move. I'm good. You know, I interviewed Butter. He said, oh, you know, he was worried that if he'd go somewhere else, people might try to extort him, or he just wouldn't really know his way around. And it's like, these guys are not catching flights and hanging out in a city where someone might be and trying to accidentally catch them. These are always crimes of opportunity. Oh, he's down the street. Let's go get him. Oh, I just saw him. Let's go get him. No one's actually catching a flight, booking a hotel, trying to bring guns interstate or getting out-of-state guns and dealing with all those headaches that go with it, not knowing the lay of the land, not knowing where the cameras are. Like, no one's doing this.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing this. These are crimes of opportunity. These are not professional hitmen. they're not. It's not like the mafia guys that you know. I remember I asked Sammy the Bull if he can kill someone today and get away with it. And he said, yeah. He said, because there's a lot of planning involved. I'll watch where you go. I'll watch how you move, where you go to work, who you see, what restaurants you eat at. And I'll patiently wait until I have the proper opportunity. This was not the case when Duck got killed because everyone got caught. And it seemed like, yes, it took a while for all the ducks to get lined up. But once it went to trial, it was a wrap. Everyone found guilty. Not a single person walked away from it. So these are not professional killers. These are guys who let their emotions get the best of them. I don't know whether there's some money, but even if, let's say Von put up 100,000, you split that 6 ways, what do you got?
You see, I've heard you talk about this before, and I find it really interesting because I feel like I get where you're coming from. I feel like to you, the way you're describing it, it's like it's so absurd that these guys would go and murder this guy downtown for a split of 100 for like 15 grand. But I think it's more than that because I think at the time, right, I think you just got to try and put yourself in that time. For example, Muwop, one of the main guys on that case, he'd allegedly killed a couple other people, right? A couple other people I could tell you about. That allegedly he's the trigger man on, say, the Man hit. People say that the guy running in, shooting Man run in the same way as him in that other video, and there's lyrics and all these different things, right? So a couple of the guys on that Duck hit had killed people before and got away with it, seemingly, right? And the interesting thing about that is there seemed to be this thing that it was like, there was this mentality of like, well, we just kill people in this gang war in the South Side and police don't give a shit. They don't come and solve these things. This guy gets shot, they just don't care, right? And so I don't think, and now with hindsight, it's so obvious to say like, they shot up downtown in the Gold Coast and obviously the feds went crazy because this is an upmarket area. I think there was this mentality and very unfortunately, I think these guys maybe felt like, well, we're killing people that look like us. No one's gonna do anything. They didn't maybe have the foresight to realize you can't drag that gang war to downtown to the Gold Coast. At the time, Muwop might have had a couple bodies and got away with it. And it's just this idea that like their leader, King Von, who was still alive at this point, had caught allegedly 7 bodies and got away with it. I think these guys felt like in their area and the beasts they were involved in, killing was just killing and that they would just get away with it. So I feel like if you put yourself in that mentality, the idea of like, they would have done that shit for free. But this whole thing of $100,000 bounty on Duck, I personally believe that to be true, but I don't believe that was the motive. I don't think these guys are like hitmen that are like, nah, I'll do it for 200,000. I think they felt like we can kill anyone. The fact that they ran down the Gold Coast and just shot the whole thing up and killed Duck in front of everyone, I think just goes to show, I think they just thought like, and again, unfortunately, like we're just killing people like us from the hood in the gang war. Police don't give a shit. We're going to get away with it just like we got away with it last time, like Von got away with it. That turned out not to be true.
Well, yeah, Boosie also said that in certain communities, 100,000 is you're rich. You're not thinking long term. For me and Boosie, 100,000 is nothing. Like literally, it makes no difference in our lives. If you put another 100,000 in my bank account, I literally wouldn't do anything.
I think,
but you know, someone who's in a certain financial situation, they think 100,000 they could retire, and that's what Boosie explained to me.
I agree with that, but then also I think you got to add that to the fact that I think it was bigger than the money because these guys have been trying to kill FBG Duck for damn near 12 years, right? Like he was the big GD. There's so much prestige attached to catching a body. Von built his whole career off rapping about bodies that he caught. I think these young guys were like, they didn't even think about it. They just thought like, yo, I'm going to be one of the guys that catches Duck and this is going to be my come up. And a lot of those guys went on to do songs where they're talking about, you know, with Duck and no bodies. A few of them guys made songs where they alluded to having been involved in the Duck murder. Zell, the young man that took his own life, he had a song where he's basically rapping about what happened. Muwop's got a bunch of songs where he's literally rapping about, he's got that lyric where he says, what was it? A Muwop from the I'm with the get backs cuz dude from 63rd couldn't get back up. And he's got some other lyric where he's like, when you're the first one out the car, you better like, when you're the first one out the car, you better get to shooting. You watch that video, he's the first one out the car and he gets to shooting. Like it was all laid out and it was all about the prestige. And even then the way they're rapping about it, it's like Muwop, you listen to these songs where he's rapping about the murder, like the guy's rapping like murder's legal. And I think it was all just about, I killed Duck, I'm getting the respect. This is my come up, like Von's come up. Because this was before, like at the time, Von made it seem like murder was just legal, to be honest, the way that he was moving. And I think that's the guy they were looking up to, and I just don't think they had the foresight. I think it was bigger than the money. I think the money was just a bonus, but the real prestige was, I'm one of the guys that hit Duck, the biggest guy, like I'm a Chicago legend. And that's sad.
Well, now you're a prison legend, so
yeah,
you're no longer in Chicago. So
yeah,
okay. Yeah, so for the rest of your life, you get to be surrounded by a bunch of men, and they could look up to you for doing this, and you also got a bunch of enemies who are GDs who hate you for it that you got to watch your back with. I don't see a win on any level. Was there any proof at all that Von paid the money for this hit? That any money was distributed to any of these guys?
Money distributed for the hit? No. Von is on camera giving money to the guys before. Von is on camera giving these guys all O-block chains in the weeks after. I think the Icebox chains, or the first appearance of those O-block chains from Icebox that were given to those guys, I want to say like August 16th, which would have been 12 days after Duck was murdered.
Oh.
So like everyone's, like Duck gets killed and then suddenly a bunch of guys start getting chains. And I don't want to say that the chains were just for the people that killed Duck, because people were getting chains that were seemingly not involved. But like Muwop had the chain, a couple of other guys, Duck dies and a chain was given afterwards. Again, we can't say definitively like that chain was specifically kill Duck and I'll get you a chain. I think the chains were already on order, but the whole thing was just like keep it real, like on some Rico shit, like this was the criminal organization. These guys were putting in work. They ended up getting chains. They ended up getting their music pushed. And I don't think it was some like contract killing of like, all right, 100 grand, whoever gets Duck, first person to get him gets the money. I think it was more some shit of like, yo, I got 100, like, I got 100 on deck for who's putting in work and like, who's doing what. There were other things going on. Obviously, there was the guy, Get Right, or Tukaville Man, who got killed in 2018 before Von had really taken off. But, as soon as that murder happens, like was on Instagram Live making fun of him, saying, what just happened? We just caught a two-piece. So there was an innocent man that got killed. They didn't know he was innocent. Talking about, we got a two-piece. Von even says, they say in that live, like, the guy was called Can't Get Right. And there was people in the comments on the live saying, can't get up. And Von was like, damn, you coming up with stuff better than us. So maybe you guys should start killing people. It's like he saw that as his own body. And that was a 2018 murder that supposedly Muwop may have been involved in. And so it's like, I definitely, I don't think it's a case of 100K in a briefcase, but I think it's a case of like, there's 100K on the table. Like, who's putting in work? Who wants a chain? Who's repping the gang? And unfortunately, now all those guys are in jail. But ultimately, as sad, as messed up as it is, like, that's what's supposed to happen. That's what the justice system's all about. You can't be going downtown and shooting people up. These guys got so wrapped up in this drill, gang banging, I'm just going to kill whoever I want lifestyle, they forgot that murder is illegal. That's just how, it's crazy.
Well, especially in certain areas. This is essentially the Rodeo Drive or the Fifth Avenue of Chicago. There's $1 billion worth of business on that street. You're not going to sit there and make all these businesses feel like they can't make their money because a bunch of guys from a nearby neighborhood are shooting up the street in broad daylight. No, like there's going to be calls from CEOs and so forth to the police department and the FBI saying, y'all need to fix this because our sales have been down because of this nonsense. This is no longer just a little neighborhood thing and it can be brushed under the table. It's making, an FBG Duck was somebody who had essentially hundreds of millions of streams and was known. Yes, he wasn't, chief key for Lil Durk, but he was still a prominent Chicago rapper, especially from the GDs. So I was sad, man. It was a sad day for me when I heard about that. I was really just depressed for a few days because it's like I'd been begging this guy to get the fuck up out of here, and he would not listen to me. And I'm on record with this shit. Like I could have had a private conversation with him about this, but no, I'm on camera and I want you to try to justify staying here after you'd been shot, after you'd been stabbed, after your brother just got killed, after a bunch of your friends are losing their lives. Like there's no reason for you to be here. Yes, you're not rich, but you see even the King Yellows of the world, they move away even when they're broke and they're still alive in places like Vegas because they're not surrounded by their enemies. I just interviewed O-Block Louie. It's not out yet. But he talked about before Quando and Von ran into each other, Von said that he's going to put hands on Quando when he sees him. So he basically said what he's about to do.
Yep.
What exactly was that?
There was a few tweets back and forth because Lil Reese kind of involved himself in it too. Lil Reese said he was going to catch Quando on Twitter, and then Quando was, because Academics reposted it, and then Quando posted something saying, oh, you guys don't deserve to live no more, fuck Academics. And so it was like, all this stuff was going on, and this was when Quando released that tape, I think it's called Diary of a Lost Child, did really poorly, had really low sales. I think Quando's music's fire. I feel like it was unfair that he did so badly. But Quando was down bad at that point. Everyone was clowning him. They were clowning his sales. Academics was roasting him. Reese was tweeting that he was going to catch him. I can't remember. I don't think Von tweeted at Quando, "I'm going to catch you," but Von was tweeting stuff like, you know, when I see you, ain't going to be no talking, it's just going to be fighting, or stuff like that. But it wasn't.
Obak basically confirmed it.
Yeah, but the funny thing about
he said that what happened that night, Von said he was going to do.
Exactly, but you know what is even more crazy about that? And this is something a lot of people missed, and this is in my video about Lil Tim and that whole thing that went on. When that was going on, if you go back and look at Lil Tim's old tweets, he's tweeting, "These guys from Chicago better chill out on Quando." He's with a bullet hole emoji. You know, that tweet's there. That was September 2020. So we're talking like 2 months before Von got killed. They're going back and forth. Reese is saying he's going to put hands on Quando. Von's tweeting, "When I catch you, ain't going to be no talking." And then Lil Tim's tweeting, "Chicago better chill out on my boy Quando," with a bullet emoji. So this stuff was loading. A lot of people didn't catch that.
Yeah. And then one night in Atlanta, they actually ran into each other. And I remember I talked to, 100K Track. I also talked to, Old Block Louie, who got shot that night in the head. And they basically said that King Von is going to be King Von. There's really, when he puts his mind to something, you're not going to talk him out of it. You can't tell him to chill. You can't say, walk away from it. He's going to do what he feels like doing. He has just a determined will to do right or wrong. In this case, it was obviously wrong with the way it ended up. So they see each other in the parking lot. Von makes a beeline to Quando, starts throwing hands on him. And then that's where things get a little fuzzy. A shootout happens. They say Lil Tim killed King Von. But then eventually Tim got cleared of all the charges. So now they're saying that the police, I guess, killed King Von?
I think Tim killed King Von. I think it's the same thing like Butter doesn't want to say Von killed KI. I think there's the O-Block guys. There's this thing in Chicago, people don't want to give the killer credit for killing their homie.
Well, it's not about getting credit. The police actually dropped the charges against Tim. So it doesn't matter who says what. And there's video footage.
Yeah, but I personally think if you will look at the footage, it's clear that Tim's shooting up Von. And then you can see, the thing is, so bear in mind, I've made so many different videos about this situation. I've upscaled the video, slowed it down, zoomed in. You can actually see in the video, you can see the police car, you can see the blue lights on top of the police car at the top of the frame, and you see that after Tim shoots up Von, like that's happened, that's done and over with. Slutty and Louie try and execute Tim on the ground. You can see the gun jams, they're not getting anything out of it. They then run around the SUV, but as they get around the other side of the SUV, you can see two cops get out of that car and start shooting at Slutty and Louie who are running past them. So it's clear to me that Tim was the one that shot up Von, because that happens before the police thing pops off, right? And the police only really activate themselves after shots start firing. Like once Tim's shots are fired, like Tim gets hit and then he falls to the ground and they're trying to kill Tim. Like if you slow it down and you look at the right parts, like I could point it out, but it's like the cops jump out and then they start shooting at Slutty and Louie, and that's at the sort of top left of the frame. And then obviously what ends up happening there, Slutty loses his life, Louis gets shot in the head. But, that video is crazy. There's so much going on, but if you slow it down and you know where to look, you can see everything that's going on and this sort of play-by-play of what's going on. It's messed up, but it's like I've painstakingly looked over it. And I personally think it's obvious that Tim killed Von, and I would completely understand, like, how are you not going to beat that self-defense case? Like, this guy and his friends who were armed, because the cops shot and killed somebody who was armed, they were attacking us. I opened fire and defended myself and my friend. To me, it's open and shut. You got two dead bodies there that the police had to neutralize with guns. So Tim defending himself when these Chicago killers are attacking his friend completely unprovoked seems like self-defense. But the crazy thing is, there's all these rumors that Tim was the King Von of Savannah. Tim might have had bodies back in the day. Tim was on go. Tim was a real shooter. And so what's really crazy about that situation is just, Von really just underestimated Quando and Tim's crew. Like they weren't, they were as real as Von's crew. And when it came to it, they popped off in the way they thought that they were going to pop off. And I guess Von just thought he was going to run around and bully and shoot everyone. Like, I dread to think what would have happened if Tim wasn't there. They might have killed Quando.
Maybe. Yeah, I wasn't aware that Slutty and Louie actually pulled out guns, because when I interviewed Louie, he said he doesn't remember anything.
I mean, I could see that.
I could see why. I mean, now in retrospect, I could see why he would answer that way. He got shot in the head and went into a coma for 2 months.
This is kind of unrelated, but this is something I just want to point out because I don't feel like people have paid attention to this. But there's something crazy about the fact, obviously, what happened to Louis is messed up, and he's obviously, that's a serious injury that he's taken right there.
Yeah.
But how crazy is it that Von spent years talking about Wooski got shot in the head? You know, Wooski needed medicine. We shot up Wooski. He ain't the same no more. That ended up happening to one of King Von's best friends the night that he died. It's just
they were
how
actually
messed up
living
that is.
together. They were roommates
Von and
at
Louis.
the time that Louis got shot and Von got killed. They were living together.
It's crazy.
That was his guy. So Slutty gets killed by the police. Louis gets shot in the head, goes into a coma. Von gets killed, allegedly, by Tim, even though they dropped the charges. Tim gets shot and gets shitbagged, I think. The video you see Quando, is he trying to get Tim to the hospital or?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a...
And Bezu said, we saw you at the hospital and we're going to kill you, but you were recording. You know, that was going around as well. Because obviously Bezu and Von's crew, they ended up at the same hospital. You know, there was a story that they were about to have another shootout at the hospital and Quando started filming it to kind of try and stop them shooting. You know, that's the crazy. Imagine that, you know, they get to the hospital with their injured mans and then it all pops up again. It's actually, you know, excuse the pun, but it's a crazy story. Like it's one of the craziest hip hop stories. I always try and say this to people. It's like, this is like Tupac versus Biggie times 10, what was going on with these guys.
Yeah, 100K track, the manager gets shot in the leg.
Crazy.
It's just an awful situation.
Yeah.
It's an absolutely awful situation. And then the aftermath is crazy. Asian Doll starts making up stories saying that Von texted her saying that they let me get killed. And then later on, oh no, that was in a dream.
Hey, listen, the thing with her, right, she's wilding out, but also like, it's got to be super traumatic, you know, losing your boyfriend, losing your ex in that sort of way. This stuff was so public, you know. She said a lot of crazy stuff, but she must have been going through a lot. So yeah, I got a lot of sympathy for her.
Yeah. So you go and drop your documentary.
Yeah.
And people get very upset over it. I mean, Asian Doll is one of the people.
Yeah.
And it's funny because sometimes she's like, oh, Von wasn't a killer. And then sometimes people are like, oh, you dated a killer. And she like it and laugh. And
she tweeted, I only date guys with bodies. And Lil Tim was retweeting talking about, come talk to me then. Like, wild.
Wow.
How are you going to walk around?
Yeah.
This is the thing. It's like, how are you going to walk around giving out that energy? Because she was even, I swear, wasn't she spotted with Top 5? You know, the guy from Canada with the bodies?
She's a train wreck. She showed up to one of my interviews when I wasn't even there and cussed out the interviewer and then stormed out. Like,
that sounds like something she'd do.
Yeah, something
about
she
right.
would do. It's whatever. I don't care. But a lot of people were upset over this documentary. I remember Boosie, when I interviewed him, he said he tried to watch it and just turn it off and said, you know, these YouTubers really don't know what the hell's going on and so forth. He was actually supposed to be at that event that night.
Wow.
They invited him, but he decided just to stay home. Because remember, he lives in Atlanta.
Hey, Boosie's known to catch a stray, so it wasn't good for him to be there then.
Unfortunately, yes.
It's messed up, man.
That's a very sad situation.
No, it's true.
So yeah, I mean, Boosie could have gotten shot randomly as well. So
No, I never knew that. That's crazy.
Yeah, no. We talked about that. I mean, he's in the mix out there.
Yeah. Well, he got caught up in the whole Mo3 thing. That's another thing that I've looked into a lot, you know.
So, but a lot of people were upset. And like you said in the beginning, they started taking your documentary down. They started copyright striking it and everything else like that. And I remember there was this whole, it's up, no, it's down, no, it's back up, no, it's back down. Like, how many times did it get taken down?
I think it was twice. It was up, down, and it was Easter weekend, so as well, I was trying to get some support from YouTube, and just no one was answering me, so it was tired. It ruined my Easter. But you know, I really believe in the content, and you know, I really did a lot of research on that project. I know a lot of, this is the thing, this is why it really irks me when so many people hated on it without watching it. Like the amount of, you know, Boosie was an example. It's like the amount of people that are like, oh, it's trash, it's a bunch of cap. Did you watch it? No. It's like, oh, come on, man. Like, I put a lot of effort into that. And it's people like I'm out here just trying to like harvest views and money off of what's going on. It's like, bro, I really sat down for like 2-3 months and actually researched this, read every tweet, listened to every lyric, like I went to town trying to put this thing together. And it kind of was like, I'm really just trying to do a deep investigation into what I think is like the most important hip hop story going on at the time. And it kind of like, I don't know, I was kind of hurt by it. It was just like people not giving it a chance. But at the same time, like, that's the game. People are going to hate. People are not going to like what you do. People are not going to agree with what you say. But as a journalist, I went wholeheartedly into that project, just trying to lay out the facts the best way I could. And, it was a project I truly believed in. And, fortunately, a lot of people did like the documentary. It's been my most successful project. And, I'm proud of what I put out there. And I wasn't trying to offend anybody, but that was just the conclusion of my research. I looked at all the evidence and I felt like this guy's looking like a serial killer.
Right. I mean, Boosie in my interview said that he feels you're going to get people hurt by putting this out there. Was it King Von's cousin went back and forth with you over it? And you mentioned earlier that the A&R at Empire, he actually said he'll physically threaten you.
He said he'll come to London and beat my face in. He said he comes to London all the time and he's going to smash my face in. There's a bunch of stuff. He sent me a bunch of messages. I kind of edit out on a stream. But yeah. But it was the same guy that I'd had the run-in with. He tried to pack my channel back in the day. And like he was coming at me like, I called him a DM demon. Because he come at me, he was like, you know how this shit goes, right? Like, we're about to take your channel down. And I was like, fuck you, basically. I was like, I've gone and done the research on this. I don't give a shit. Like, I'm not taking it down. This is my truth. Von, this is why the whole thing pissed me off so much. Like, Von was running around talking about bodies his whole life. If Von didn't have all them bodies, people wouldn't have been interested. The whole thing was, like I say, it's this true crime, gangster rap. He was really what he rapped. Von's the realist. How many interviews have people done with it? Like, yeah, like Durk's, Von's the realist. Von's got a real story. He's on the Breakfast Club talking about his story. Real, he real. And then I go and do the research and prove that a bunch of stuff's seemingly real. And then people want to say it's all cap and that it's false. Like, I did the work on that project. I felt as a journalist, like, I stood on everything that I put out there. And I really think, it really felt like to me, it was just this thing of like, King Von's people just didn't like that I was putting this jacket on him of serial killer, but I felt that was the conclusion from what I've understood. And you know what else? I just want to say for the record, bro, ain't nothing cool about killing and murder. Like, I'm on the murder is bad side. Like, if you're on a team of like, if murder's good or bad, if people should be allowed to kill people and get away with it and make songs about it, bro, like, I think that shit's bad for society. I love gangster rap. I love King Von's music. If I'm in the gym and I'm bumping a King Von back again, I'm going hard. The music affects me in a way that I love the music and I love the art, and it's a real representation of what's going on. But at the end of the day, bro, it seems like Von was killing people, and that's bad. And I feel like, not to get all Scarface, but like, you need people like me to break it down and just say like, look, this is how it is, and this is what. No one else is reading all the tweets. Like, I'm the guy that sat down and read all the tweets, and I'm telling you what it is. And I feel like I stand on it, and I feel like the hate was undue, but also, I feel like Balo was like racking up a bit of clout off the back of it, our little back and forth. Like, I think the whole thing really made me understand, like, even Asian Doll, she was dissing me and she was on TMZ, and then she dropped a single. So it kind of almost opened my eyes to like, everyone's trying to hate on me, but then they're also using that to kind of get some motion for what they're doing. And like, I'm a journalist and I stand on what I put out there, really.
Well, Van Lathan Academics, they debated with you.
Yeah, with Chicago King Dave, sorry. And I felt like that was a really good debate. I really appreciated that because I felt like that was a great opportunity for me to really like speak my truth. And I think like I went into that debate, I felt like they thought they were going to catch me out and like really put me down. And I felt like I stood on business and kind of just was like, as a journalist, I stood on what I'd said. And I think a lot of people respected that. And it came out really positive in the end. Like, I felt people saw that and were like, I kind of see where you're coming from. You're just trying to like lay out what happened. And I really appreciated that opportunity, and it was a good conversation.
Right. Well, you said you started to get depressed by the death threats and the hate.
A lot of Chicago guys saying they were going to kill me. Obviously, Von's A&R. He ain't really a threat, but like, O-Block guys saying they were going to get up with me, and I get DM death threats all the time. I don't know about you, but people saying they're going to kill me all the time.
Yeah, every so often.
I turned off my DMs recently, but like, it was depressing. It was depressing as well because it's like I didn't think the Von thing was going to be that big either. Like, honestly, I know it seems like crazy to say in hindsight now, but like, the days before I was dropping that, I was thinking like, bro, are people really going to want to hear 3.5 hours of King Von? Like, this might flop. But I've spent 2-3 months on this project. People might not rock with this. Fortunately, they did, but I could have gone either way. I was like, are people going to really even care that much? People really going to think much of it? And it got out of control, and it did make me depressed because I just felt really down about the fact that like, as a journalist, I put my all into this project, and I felt, to be honest, like it was my most popular thing. So realistically, in the end, it's a W, and it's like I think it's a great summarization of like what I can do as a journalist. But it just felt tough that it just caused such an avalanche of hate and death threats that I just wasn't prepared to deal with. And it definitely got me down and affected me mentally in a way that like I wasn't expecting. You know, that's difficult. But then being a content creator, it's got its pitfalls, man. It's not always going to be a walk in the park.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone through this lots of times. I mean, from interviewing No Plug about the killing of Bankroll Fresh. Me and Charlamagne had a falling out that lasted a few years over that, only for TMZ to eventually release the footage that actually showed Bankroll Fresh waving around a gun right before he got shot. And actually, you know, it said in the article that he actually shot first and they returned fire. And Charlamagne was like, yeah, my bad. You know, you were right. I mean, to interviewing Ayanna Jackson, the rape accuser for Tupac. Just a lot of people. You know, interviewing Terrence Gangster Williams, who admitted to killing 40 people. King Von doesn't hold a candle to what Terrence has done. 40 people. That's a mind-blowing number. But ultimately, my thing is, if it's the truth, it's the truth. I mean, I interviewed the guy that was responsible to killing Michael Jordan's dad. There's been a lot of times. And when you push the envelope and talk about things that people are uncomfortable hearing about, you're always going to get that backlash. Like, why are you giving this person a platform? Why are you talking about this? You don't have the right to talk about it based on your skin color or your background or whatever. But it's like, yo, I'm going to talk about what I'm going to talk about. And if it really is a real story, now if it's fake, then yeah, I get it. But if it's real and this is the actual person involved, and if they'd done their prison time or if they were cleared because of self-defense, I'm going to let them tell their story. And I mean, it is what it is at the end of the day. You know, for example, when I interviewed 1090 Jake, he said, you deserve an award for the work that you've done.
Yeah,
you know,
shout out to 1090 Jake.
He went through it and it all seems to check out on his end, and he's the meticulous guy.
He's the stamp man.
Yeah. And you said that Lil Durk rapped about you in one of his songs?
Yeah, he had a bar where he kind of talked about, what was it? Something about YouTubers. It was like I can't even remember the bar now off the top of my head. But Academics even asked him. Academics did an interview with Durk where he asked him about it, and he was just like, "Nah, it's cap. We don't fuck with it." But I expect that. But like, I can't remember what the bar was. It's something about YouTubers. What was it? It's like, I can't remember the bar, but there was some bar that was like a few months after that, and it seemed like he was talking about me, which is just crazy. YoungBoy, I did the big YoungBoy documentary, and YoungBoy rapped about that.
What did YoungBoy say?
He said, because the title of that video was Real Gangster, was it Real Killer or Fake Gangster? And so he said in a song, he was like, real killer or fake gangster, come fuck with us, I'll have you front row at the funeral or something. I wasn't sure if he's saying, I'm going to be front row at the funeral, or is it going to be my funeral? Or I'm not sure, but I was just hyped to hear a YoungBoy bar. But this is the thing, I'm a huge fan. Like when YoungBoy referencing me in a song is like, that's a wet dream for me. Pause. No Diddy, but.
Well, when you were putting together the NBA YoungBoy documentary, you were getting death threats over that. From who exactly? From fans or someone affiliated with him, or? Hard to say.
I could say all of the above. I received a message from Fredo Bang, a stern message from Fredo Bang. I took something out of the video at Fredo Bang's request.
I know Fredo Bang. I mean, him and YoungBoy aren't the best of friends.
No.
What exactly did you say?
What did I say?
Yes. No. What did you have of him in the documentary?
I took it out. I'm not going to say, but
Okay,
like, because I don't want to bring attention to it, because Fredo was like, I'm not really rocking with that. And
Yeah, I
you know
like
what?
Fredo, man.
You know what? When he said that to me, I took another look at what I'd said, and I was kind of like, I see. I was like, I kind of see where you're coming from. You know what it is? It's like sometimes people might say that to me, and if I look at it and I'm just like, I don't think that even really contributes to the wider topic that I'm talking about, or the wider understanding. You know, I was just like, I'm gonna trim that out. That ain't nothing to me. And I respect him. I love his music. Love YoungBoy's music. Like, you know. But to be fair, Fredo wasn't threatening to kill me, but he was like, I'm not feeling this. But yeah, just all sorts of people, you know, all sorts of no display picture having folks, you know, saying they were going to do this and that. You know, some of the Chicagos, like some big names saying they were going to do this and that. But yeah, the YoungBoy thing I think was interesting because, again, I think that was a 6-hour video and people see the title. And it's funny, right? Because I had people pissed off saying that he was a real killer and I'm a snitch. And I had people pissed off saying, "You saying he's a fake gangster? He's a real gangster. He'll get at you." So it was like I couldn't win. But again, the title of that video, it was kind of that was trying to be divisive, but I was also trying to get at the question of like, that's the question everyone asks with YoungBoy. Is he really a killer? He says he's on a track. He says he's the gravedigger. Is he really?
Gravedigger Mountain.
Exactly. And the thing with the YoungBoy video, I had the same aim as the Von video. I was like, well, he says he's got songs where he's talking about 12, 13 bodies. So I said, you know what, let me do exactly the same treatment to YoungBoy as I gave to Von. Let me work out, did he really do any of this stuff? And if you watch that video to the end, you'll see my conclusion is basically like, YoungBoy's around that, he ain't really do that. YoungBoy ain't killed anyone.
Right, because I remember when he was first coming out, he had a murder charge that he was fighting.
Attempted murder.
Attempted murder, my bad. Okay, which he ultimately beat.
Well, he took 10 years probation in it. So he got that, and that was, his cousin Boozilla got killed, and him and his boys were basically sliding for revenge, and they shot up a certain person's house, and that was the attempted murder charge. I think it was 2 counts of attempted murder or something, but it's like him and all the NBA guys in the car together, basically going to avenge Boozilla, and that situation ended up popping off. One of their guys got shot in the neck, and again, the rest is history on that. That's how he ended up. The judge really cut him some slack and gave him that 10 years probation. And unfortunately, he managed to shake loose of that. But it's just, he's had nonstop legal issues because, I don't know, it's a crazy one with YoungBoy because it's just I don't think they'll ever leave him alone.
Well, he just got arrested today.
Yeah.
Basically, they said that while on probation, on house arrest, he was, I guess there was some drug stuff, some fraud stuff. It was his house got raided. And now I believe he's locked up again.
Sounds like it, yeah.
It's kind of crazy because he's been given so many chances and he continues to get himself in trouble to a certain degree.
I think so, but also I think they're so hard and restrictive on him. I think it's this guy can barely make a move without putting a foot in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And I feel like people don't understand YoungBoy. A lot of people write YoungBoy off. They're like, oh, he just floods all this crap, low quality music out into the market. Oh, his music's rubbish. And it's like, no. This guy's stuck on house arrest. He's got nothing to do but to be creative and put his pain into his music and tell his stories. He can't leave the house. All he can do is sit in the home studio and make music. And it's like, people really need to understand what he's going through. Everywhere he goes to, they're trying to kill him. He's got nothing to do but sit there and record music, and he's depressed. And so many of his friends have been killed. So many people have died about, his business. It's like, I have so much sympathy for YoungBoy. And in that video, I really tried to break down and make people understand, can you see where this kid's coming from? This kid's going through some, this kind of, I don't know if it's cringy, but it's just, I always trying to say to people, it's his rap name's YoungBoy. He's a young boy. He's gone through a lifetime of shit as a young boy. He's only 22, 23 or something.
Yeah.
This guy's been through 100 years of pain.
Right.
And he's still a young boy. It's crazy what he's been through. And he's released a lifetime's worth of albums. He's got we're talking over a dozen albums.
Yeah.
He's still a young boy. And it's trying to get people to understand that with this video, it's that's why it's 6 hours.
Well, you recently did a Tay Savage documentary, and you said Tay's about to be what King Von was in 2019.
That's what I said, man. I feel like Tay's got that energy. He's got a crazy backstory. He's beaten murder charges. Beat those cases. Was found not guilty in 2 cases, and I personally think that Tay Savage has got a lot of talent. I feel like he's shown a lot of potential. I personally feel like it's that early King Von energy, and I really like Tay's music. I think the way he carries himself, one of the things people used to say about Von is he carried himself in a certain way. He used to call him grandson. Obviously, it wasn't true, but there was this sort of embellished rumor that he was the grandson of the founder of the BDs, David Barksdale, in the way that he carried himself like King David. And I feel like Tay's got this sort of very tough way of carrying himself. When you see him in interviews, you can just tell the way he carries himself. He's a very unique and very interesting individual. And I think his music's fire. So I feel like Tay Savage is next up. Unfortunately, it's seemingly been locked up very recently, but I don't think the details of the case has come out. But I feel like he's got a bright future in music if he can focus on that. And he's someone I really appreciate. And I think I feel like it's early for his career, but I hope he can stay out of trouble and keep releasing music and kind of be in this space.
Right, and you were actually talking to Drakeo the Ruler about doing something on him while he was still alive. And I remember I interviewed him right when he got out of prison. And I remember his manager called me while he was still locked up, when he was essentially fighting, was it a shooting or a murder?
It was a murder, yeah.
It was a murder, right. And they're like, hey, he wants to do an interview about the case. And I'm like, it's an open case. It's going to get used against him, and he's still in jail fighting this thing. I don't want to do it. Once he gets out and he beats it, I'll do it. You got my word. But I'm not going to contribute to this. Sure enough, he gets out, and we do the interview. And we talked about the situation, and even the guy he was beefing with, was it RJ?
As one of the people, that beef's
even
really
RJ
complicated.
said he wasn't the shooter, and I got no beef with the dude, and he basically cleared him himself.
It seemingly he wasn't the shooter. The crazy thing about his case was really complicated because it was like he basically, from what I understood, he beat the murder charge, but then they kept him in there and they tried him, I think, separately for the gang enhancement.
Right.
Which is really unusual. The way he put it across, and to be fair, he kind of twisted it in a way it wasn't really how he said, but the way he was saying it was like, I beat murder and then they tried me again for the same crime, which they can't do. But really it was like they kind of separated the gang enhancement. He beat the murder and then they tried to get him on the gang enhancement, but he ended up beating all of it. I think that the gang enhancement charge ended up getting dropped. I think like the DA changed or something.
Yeah.
He ended up beating it.
DA didn't get reelected and got a new DA, and then they basically was like, all right, let's just wrap this up.
But keeping it real about that case though, it seemingly he wasn't the person that killed the guy, but it was like, him and his entourage are out and one of his guys spots a guy that they'd have a problem, and this young dude, was it Kells, ends up shooting Red Bull, and Kells went down for the murder. But it's just such a shame that when Drakeo got out, he couldn't just leave that street stuff behind and just focus on the music. But I think he was so negatively affected by his bad experience in jail, doing so long in solitary, that I think he was just consumed by this beef. And again, how that played out was really unfortunate. I was such a fan of him, man.
Yeah, well, he drops that song Ingleweird.
Yeah.
Which almost reminds me of Dead Bitches in a way. I mean, Inglewood's a large area, man. I used to stay out there. I can't imagine dissing a whole city in LA while living in LA.
It's wild.
That to me, I haven't heard of that since, I don't know, KRS-One doing The Bridge Is Over, where he dissed Queens. But that was very early on. This was like, 30-something years ago. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he dissed Inglewood. Not to say that had anything to do with his murder, but he showed up at this show and he just got mobbed by a group of people and he got stabbed to death. And it's still unsolved, from what I understand, which is crazy.
It is crazy.
Absolutely crazy. And
a stabbing, that's unusual for America, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a UK thing.
Yeah, really is,
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting because when I talk to Americans, a lot of them are like, yo, so you really, Sharjeez last night was saying like, yo, you'd really be stabbing people out in England? And it's kind of like, we're kind of used to it in a way, but it's like, I think to Americans, being stabbed to death is like very gruesome. And, the way Drakeo went out, he's on camera getting stabbed. He's on camera laying on the floor dying. It's fucked up. And I think Americans find that more shocking, whereas that's more of a normal thing in the ends in London.
Well, it's a much harder thing to achieve.
Yeah.
I remember lots of jail guys I talked to, they tell me about how these guys go into prison and they're the shooters or whatever else, and they become very passive once they don't have a gun. And you got to actually grab a knife or you actually have to fight someone hand to hand. That's a lot more personal. It's a lot closer. It's a lot harder to pull off. And 99% of those guys, they don't have the heart to actually go through with something like that. So they just sit back and they just quietly do their time. The guys that are actually out stabbing people, and that's a rarity. This is why a lot of times they all get sent to super maxes and everything else like that, because most people, they just don't want to do that. Shooting someone from across the street, it's a lot different than walking up to someone with a knife, physically having to stab a person multiple times while they're trying to do something to you. They may have a knife themselves or some other weapon where it's a lot easier to get hurt during a stabbing yourself than a shooting from across the street or a drive-by or something like that. Do you think that they'll find the guys who killed Drakeo and actually charge them, or no?
I personally think they will, just because I think in this day and age with technology, it's very hard to get away with these things long term. And I think, even you look at the Duck case, it's like, now it seems very obvious that they would catch him. But at the time, those guys were going on, it was like a year or 18 months that they were just going.
Yeah, it was like a year and a half.
Going scot-free, rapping about it like it was never going to get solved. But I always felt like I had an inkling. I was like, I think they're going to solve that. I think it's just a matter of time. They're letting everybody kind of talk too much and let all that information come out of there. They're going to sweep them up eventually. The thing is, it's like the feds can't move as quick as social media, right? People will work out a crime. People will work out who did something on Reddit a year and a half before the feds do. But the thing is, they got unlimited time. As long as you're still alive, I think they're going to come and get you. So I don't know too much about what happened exactly, but I just think in general, I think it's a lot harder to get away with murder these days, and I think that a lot of that incident is on camera, and I don't think it's going to be impossible for them to work that out. But maybe it won't. Maybe it'll be one of those unsolved cases that goes by.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've always heard from guys that did a lot of prison time. They've always said that the wheels of justice move very slowly. So just because you think you've gotten away with it in a year, 2 years, sometimes even 20 or 30 years. I mean, look at Keefe D. 30 years later, he's now being charged with a murder.
Yeah.
And, people start to talk. Like, for example, I just started watching, this is very old, but the Robert Durst documentary on HBO.
Okay.
And he essentially, they say, killed 3 people. But he got away with all 3. He went to trial. He beat it. 10 years passed. They do like a movie kind of about the situation. He decides to reach out to the people making the movie and wants to do a sit down interview for the first time. Then he goes to the bathroom with a hot mic on and admits to the murder. They then hand over the footage to authorities, and now he's in prison. And now he's working with them again, doing a part 2 about his time in prison, which is kind of crazy to me. Like, I feel like if you get away with a murder, this to me is a 48 laws of power thing. I read this. I remember this changed my life. And one of the 48 laws of power is if you win, you don't go past your point in victory. You win, you stop.
You
stop competing. You don't rub their face in it. You don't keep bragging about your win. You stop. Because if you continue past the finish line, there is a relatively good chance that you're going to take your loss from that win, because the people you've just beat are going to get more and more pissed off. You're rubbing their face in it. You're bragging about it, or whatever else. They're going to come back, and you could ultimately take your win and turn it into a complete loss. And this is what you've seen over and over again. You saw it in Keefe D. You see it in Robert Durst. Keefe did not have to write a book. He got his proffer agreement. He cooperated. He said what he did. He was facing life in prison over the PCP charges. He had gotten away with the Tupac murder. He was done. Yes, the audio got leaked, and I'm sure people that knew him and in his neighborhood probably gave him a hard time over it, but nobody knew what Keefe D looked like. No one even knew he was living in Las Vegas, which is where the murder occurred. He didn't even move out of that damn city. He was living where they could prosecute him. And he didn't have to do it. He didn't get paid that much from people like me when I did the interview. It's not even enough to even give a down payment to his lawyer. He didn't have to write a book. He didn't have to do anything. He wanted to spike the ball. And now, 60-something years old, whatever he gets will be a life sentence. Unless he walks away with time served, which seems relatively unlikely. It's a weird thing, because people really get on me like, oh, you have people talk about all these crimes. Now, look, if you did your prison time, you have paid the cost to tell your story. I get it. You did 20 years, whether you're Freeway Ricky Ross or Convertible Bert or all the other guys I've interviewed over the years. You were drug dealing, you were involved in various violent activities, but you went to prison for it. You admitted to it. You did your time. Now you're out. You have the absolute right to tell your story. But if you never got caught for it, you should really shut the fuck up. You won. You got away without doing life in prison. You got away with it. Hold that. Look at OJ. OJ, on his deathbed when he died, did not admit to killing Ron and Nicole. He took that to the grave. I remember when I was talking to his people about doing an interview, they were like, he'll do it, but he doesn't want to get deep into the killing story. He doesn't want to talk about the blood evidence or whatever else, because, ultimately that's going to bury him. OJ kept his mouth shut till the day he died. He won. He was found not guilty, and he never talked about it again. But some of these guys, man, it blows my mind.
Well, it goes back to the Duck thing, because it was like, it wasn't about the money, it was about the prestige. And that's crazy that you had guys like Muwop and C-Thang and Zell going around just doing the most, trying to do these songs. We're ducking nobodies, we ain't ducking the feds, like all these little duck references in their songs. Did you see Muwop's shoes? You ever see this? Oh man, so there's this famous pair of Gucci shoes, and it's got a picture on the side. It's like a Gucci Disney collab, and it's got, I think, Donald Duck with it says Flash, and it's someone taking a picture of Donald Duck, and Duck's like caught in the crossfire. Muwop bought those shoes after the murder and posted it on Instagram with a post that's like, "I've always been youngest in charge," like wink face. Just a picture of these shoes with Duck getting caught, him flashing Duck. It's basically like a cartoon of the murder happening, right? Like Duck's like caught in the flash, and he's got this post of like, they know what I'm about, or whatever, the winky face emoji. It was just wild. It was the most wild example of self-snitching I'd ever seen. And it's like you just say, but people doing too much. It's unbelievable. It's unimaginable to even imagine like you actually did that, and then you're running around, you're buying the shoes to depict that. Like that's a whole other level, bro. So it's crazy, and that was just wild. Even those little details. It's like they could have brought that up in trial. They didn't even need it. There was unlimited. There's probably Instagram lives and comments that people hadn't even found of them copping to the murder and stuff.
Butter said that all 6 of those guys are in a photo together, like right afterwards.
I can believe that.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, listen, if I get, if I kill somebody and I'm not being charged with it, I'm going to go somewhere where there's no extradition policy. If I still have my passport, that's what I was saying, like about Diddy, like with his new charges. I said, if I'm Diddy and there's no charges and I have my passport, I'm going to go set up shop in Russia or Bali or Iran or Venezuela. And yes, I'm not going to have my Miami, LA lifestyle and all my friends and girls or whatever, but I won't be in prison.
Facts.
I won't be in prison. I mean, look at my man, Russell Simmons. He saw some shit might be coming down the line. They were making a documentary about him. He sold his West LA house, his West Hollywood house, I mean. He sold his Tribeca condo. He sold his Basquiat and said, I'm going to go to Bali and build a hotel, and that's where I'll be. And if the coast is clear, I'll come back. But if it's not, I'll just live in a nice, beautiful island surrounded by beautiful women and my $100 million that I just cashed out. And that's it. And yeah, it might not be ideal, but it's better than being in a prison cell, especially as an older person. Like, I don't know why people, they do these crimes and they just stick around waiting for the police to get them later on. Like, fuck that. I'm out. If I haven't been charged and I saw my passport, I'm out. And people can come. I'll pay for people to come visit me if I get lonely.
For real, man.
But none of these guys do it. And I understand that someone may not have the funds, but I would scrape together whatever. I know I did it. I'm out. I know I did it. Yes, I could say that I didn't do it, and according to the courts, but in my own mind, if I know that I did it, and there's probably cameras around, I'm out. And that'll just be my life, somewhere else, some other country. I'll learn the language, I'll get adapted, I'll YouTube from over there, like, come extradite me.
Do you know about the UK rapper Suspect? Have you ever heard about his story?
Mm-mm.
So I did a long 4-hour piece about him in February, and here's a crazy story. So he's a British UK drill rapper who basically was involved with his gang, they're called Active Gang, in 2 murders, stabbings in 2019. And there were 6 guys involved in the case. It's really interesting. So 2 of them went to Somalia, and they got away with these 2 murders. Never been found. 2 guys got away. 2 of them, one of the young guys just got caught straight away. One of them was trying to get a fake passport to fly to Egypt. He got caught. He got life. But Suspect and this guy S. Wavy, who was involved in these murders with him, they flew to France and then to Kenya, right? And so Suspect set up a whole new life in Kenya. He wasn't really a rapper before these murders, but he caught these bodies, fled to Kenya, hiding out. No one knew where he was. And then he started rapping, and he had body doubles in the UK recording videos. He's making all this demonic drill music about, I stabbed this guy, the knife went through his chest and out his back, like dark stuff, calling himself the Grim Reaper of Agar Grove, right? Going super viral. He was like King Von in the UK, so that's what was going on, right? He was hiding out in Kenya for over, I think it was maybe like 18 months, 2 years-ish. He'd built a whole new life for himself. He'd found a woman, got married, had a child in Kenya.
Wow.
Built this whole lifestyle for himself. But the craziest thing, right? 2 of the guys went to Somalia, and a lot of these guys were Somali. It's like a Somali gang. He didn't realize there's an extradition treaty between Kenya and the UK.
Yeah.
And for a long time, nobody knew where he was. They didn't know he was in Kenya, but he got a little bit, he never showed his face. He got a little bit cocky, started doing a face reveal, He was on Instagram Live dissing people, showing off his apartment, pictures of him in the kitchen with 2 fingers up saying that's how many bodies he's got. One more body, I'll get a UAV on some Call of Duty shit. But the craziest thing is, he started posting these pictures and they go viral on Reddit, and people are like, I recognize that plug socket and that oven and those tiles. That looks like my auntie's spot in Kenya. That looks like Mombasa, Kenya. People start putting it together, and within a few months of that, they caught him. The DCI Kenya got hold of him, extradited him back to the UK, got, I think, 24 years in jail. But 2 of them went to Somalia, never been seen again. But he got cocky, went to Kenya, didn't even realize he could get extradited. But that's, like you're saying, some people got the foresight to get the hell out. Some people don't leave. Some people, they just go where they feel like it and they think they're never going to get caught. But that's a crazy story. You know, if you're ever interested in some UK kind of history, like he was like the Von of the UK for a minute, but that's a mad story.
Yeah, I mean, the longer I do this, the more I realize that the majority of people who get convicted is usually them telling on themselves. I mean, even my man Taxstone, I remember speaking to his lawyer during the trial and after the trial, and his lawyer told me flat out that Troy Ave taking the stand, the jury was on the fence about it. They knew they had been beefing and he's going to say whatever. Yeah, so there was a little bit of video footage, but you can't really tell what's happening, whatever else. What ultimately got him was Taxstone had a cell phone in Rikers. And I remember I've talked to him on the cell phone before. We FaceTimed and stuff like that. I would never ask him anything. But I remember I did ask him. I said, hey, well, at one point I said, why didn't you just leave? He's like, I didn't do nothing. I'm like, okay, I'll leave it at that. Okay, cool. That's what you're saying? This may be recorded? Cool. But what his lawyer told me was that he was, I think it was a Telegram, the DM service, the private DM service. He was telegramming people, and he basically talked about his case to somebody. They managed to get, those records, and it was played to the jury. And he said he talked to one of the jurors and said, they're like, we couldn't get past that part. When he basically, in his own words, said what he did, that was essentially the final nail in the coffin. He ended up getting whatever, 20-something years or 30-something years. It was some hideous amount of time. But this is what I see over and over again. The O Block 6, they're all telling on themselves. They're doing songs. They're, they're bragging about it. They're doing Instagram posts, Twitter posts, whatever else. You could get, if you don't say anything and you're counting on people testifying against you, and most times those people have questionable histories themselves, where you're like, yeah, he told, but look at all the crimes this person did, and this is the personal vendetta they have, whatever else. That's a reasonable doubt. You could walk away from some of these crimes. But when you're saying it yourself, and you're bragging about it, and you're DMing people, and you're talking about it, whatever else, that's ultimately what's going to bury you. And this is, I think, if there's any lesson to be had in this interview, it's that. If you're doing crimes actively on any level, you shouldn't be rapping. You shouldn't be on social media. You shouldn't be talking about it. You shouldn't be doing interviews. You shouldn't be doing videos. You should, at that point, listen, you got away with it. The price that you pay for that is you're going to have to be silent about it for the rest of your life if you want to continue to have your freedom. But most people, they can't seem to grasp that concept. They still want to do it, and they also want to be famous for it. They want to get the clout for it. They want to get the likes. They want to get the girls. They want to get the whatever. And look, I mean, if Von didn't have the history he had, would Durk have put him, under his shoulder? Probably not. So yeah, they see people like Von and they see this level of success and they, look, if I do this, then this will happen. But these stories always seem to end badly. And like I said, I wish I got to interview King Von. I like his music as well. I understand that, when it comes to killing, it's not always cut and dry. It's considered a bad thing, but sometimes it is out of your control. There are self-defense situations, and sometimes you're in a war. We interviewed Nicholas Irving, who was considered the Grim Reaper. He was an Army sniper. He killed 30-some people. Is he a serial killer? To some people, he is. To some people, he's not. And we talked about that. There's an argument both ways. he's just following orders. Oh, these people are going to kill us. But you took it upon yourself to kill them first. Some of them were teenagers, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds. So it's one of those things, man. It's not as cut and dry as people like to make it. But, ultimately, man, I respect what you do. I'm glad we finally got a chance to do this interview. You're going to get your criticism, of course, just like I get my criticism. But ultimately, the numbers speak for themselves, and the products you're putting out are dope. And I continue, to watch it and hope you have continued success.
I appreciate that, Vlad. It means a lot coming from you, man. You really are the GOAT of this thing. I always say one of the GOATs. You really are the GOAT of this thing, man. You're top dog. You've been at it for years. I was probably in diapers when you were making big moves in this place.
16 years now.
That's crazy,
since 2008.
Man. You've inspired me so much, so I just want to thank you. I really appreciate this conversation,
course,
and man, I'm trying to be like you.
Hey, man, I think for people like myself, I'm 50 right now. We put this stuff out to inspire the next generation. I like when people take bits and pieces of what I've done and create their own spin on it and have their success. And I've always gone out of my way to embrace the content creators. I've never beefed with them or try to say they're copying or whatever. It's like from Charlemagne to Academics to Adam 22 to Sean Cotton to Math Hoffa. These are all guys that I've embraced. I've done their platform, they do my platform. I support what they do. We have conversations. We share business advice. We put each other up on connections and so forth. And I always feel like, and I always have people that beef with me in the media space. I always think it's dumb. I feel like we all do better when we work together and we share resources, because ultimately there's enough eyeballs to go around for all of us to be successful. And you're just another example of that.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
No doubt. Peace.